In the quiet stillness of night, we begin our gentle journey through the legacy of a timeless hero. This is the story of Superman, told slowly, softly, and peacefully. A story not of battles and explosions, but of hope, identity, and quiet strength. Over the next few hours, we will walk through the long history of Superman from a distant world in the stars to the quiet fields of Kansas and into the heart of a man who always chose to help. Let your body relax. Let your thoughts drift. With each chapter, we will float deeper into the myth and meaning of Superman, his origin, his purpose, and the gentle light he has brought to the world for generations. All you need to do is rest. I will guide you softly through the legacy of the man of tomorrow, the calm origins of the last son of Krypton. In the quiet depth of cosmic space, long before the world knew his name, there existed a brilliant world known as Krypton. It was a shining planet set under the gentle glow of a red sun. Its landscapes shimmered with crystalline towers and silver plains. Great rivers sparkled with minerals unknown to Earth, and mountains rose like sculptures carved by time itself. Krypton was a world built on knowledge, science, and cultural achievement. It was a world of harmony, invention, and ancient wisdom, where generations had studied the mysteries of the universe and unlocked truths far ahead of any other civilization. Among the people of Krypton lived a couple whose hearts were full of devotion. Jor-El, a man of extraordinary intellect, was one of the planet's leading scientists. His mind was brilliant, precise, and endlessly curious. He spent his days studying seismic shifts, astronomical patterns, and the subtle warnings that whispered through the planet's crust. Beside him lived his wife Lara, a woman of grace and strength. She shared Jor-El's hope for a bright future and cared deeply for their family, especially for their newborn son, Kal-El. At first, Krypton seemed calm. Its crimson sky drifted in a serene haze, and its cities hummed gently with energy. But beneath that calm surface, Jor-El saw signs that troubled him deeply. He detected growing instability in Krypton's core. He observed cracks forming in the conduits that carried energy throughout the planet. He watched the red sun flicker in ways it had never flickered before. Though he brought his findings to the ruling council, they dismissed his warnings. They insisted that Krypton had endured for countless ages and would endure for countless more. Jor-El felt the urgency rising like a quiet storm. He and Lara continued their research in secret, driven by love for their child. Day after day, the evidence grew impossible to ignore. The planet trembled more frequently. Great crystal towers began to vibrate with strange patterns. Lakes bubbled from heat trapped beneath the ground. As Jor-El worked late into the night, Lara often held Kal-El close, singing soft melodies from Krypton's old lullabies. She whispered hopes for a future her son might never see unless they took action. When the final calculations were done, Jor-El and Lara understood the heartbreaking truth. Krypton would not simply crack, it would explode. Their planet, their people, their history, all would vanish in a burst of destruction. They had very little time left. Jor-El made a choice no parent should ever have to make. He began building a small spacecraft, a vessel large enough only for a single infant, but sturdy enough to travel across the stars. He crafted it with the most advanced technology Krypton had ever known. Its frame was light as crystal, yet strong as steel. Its engines pulsed with refined solar energy, allowing it to travel faster than any known ship in their fleet. Lara assisted him in designing the cabin. She made sure the interior was soft and safe for her child, wrapping the structure in a protective lining that would cradle Kal-El during the journey. Together, the two parents poured every ounce of their love into that tiny craft. As Krypton's final hours approached, the tremors grew violent. Buildings cracked, crystal bridges collapsed. The red sun pulsed like a beating heart. Jor-El and Lara held their baby close, their eyes full of sorrow and hope. They placed Kal-El gently into the spacecraft, wrapped in a small blanket marked with their family crest. Lara touched his cheek and whispered a blessing. Jor-El lowered the translucent shield, sealing their son inside. With shaking hands but unwavering resolve, Jor-El activated the launch sequence. The engines glowed bright white. The room shook. The vessel rose. As it soared upward into the sky, Jor-El and Lara watched with tears streaking their faces. They knew they would never see their son again, but they also knew that they had saved him. For a moment, as the rocket ascended into the heavens, they felt a brief warmth of peace. Seconds later, Krypton trembled with a roar. The planet split in a blinding light, shattering into countless fragments that scattered across the cosmos. What had once been a world full of life became dust and glowing shards drifting silently through space. But the tiny ship carrying Kal-El escaped the blast. It shot across the universe like a spark of hope. Inside the small vessel, baby Kal-El slept peacefully. The computer systems kept him nourished and warm as the stars drifted by. He passed nebula clouds glowing with pink and gold. He passed ancient meteor fields and lonely drifting moons. With every passing moment, he traveled farther from the past and closer to the future that awaited him. Eventually, the ship drew near a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow sun. That sun was unlike the red sun of Krypton. Its light was brighter, stronger, and deeply nourishing to Kryptonian biology. The ship pierced through Earth's atmosphere, streaking over the quiet farmlands of Kansas. It landed gently in a field surrounded by tall grass and rolling hills. The first humans to reach the crash site were Jonathan and Martha Kent. Jonathan was a hard-working farmer with steady hands and a kind spirit. Martha was gentle, nurturing, and wise. They approached the smoldering craft with caution at first. Then they heard a soft cooing sound inside. Jonathan pried open the small hatch and saw a baby lying within, unharmed and smiling up at them. They exchanged glances full of wonder. The Kents had long wished for a child, but had never been able to have one. Now, here was a miracle delivered directly into their lives. They lifted the child into their arms, feeling a warmth unlike anything they had felt before. They decided in that moment to raise the child as their own. They named him Clark Kent, believing that every child deserved a name grounded in love. As Clark grew, the Kents noticed he was different in ways they could not fully explain. He was stronger than other children. He never seemed to tire. His eyes could see great distances. Sometimes he moved with a speed that startled both of them. But Jonathan and Martha never treated him as anything other than their son. Instead, they taught him patience, humility, kindness, and responsibility. They taught him that power should always be used to help and never to harm. Clark spent his childhood in the small town of Smallville. He played in the grassy fields, chased chickens around the barn, and rode his bicycle down dusty roads. But even in this peaceful setting, Clark could feel that he was different. He had to hide his abilities so other children would not be afraid. he learned to pretend to struggle with chores that he could easily do with one hand. He practiced walking slower, talking softer, and holding back whenever he wanted to leap over fences or run to the horizon. One day, when Clark was still a boy, he asked Jonathan why he felt so different. Jonathan placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and said, "Clark, you are here for a reason. Maybe one day you will understand it. But no matter what you discover about yourself, always remember that you are loved, and you must always choose to do what is right." Those words sank deeply into Clark's heart. As Clark entered his teenage years, his powers continued to grow. His strength increased. His senses sharpened. His speed became extraordinary. One day, during a storm, he lifted a piece of farm machinery to save his father. Another time, he ran faster than a racing truck when a friend needed help. In private, he tested the limits of what he could do. He discovered he could jump incredibly far, and eventually his feet left the ground long enough for him to hover. Clark began to understand that he was not from Earth. Jonathan and Martha eventually showed him the remains of the spaceship they had hidden in the barn. Clark touched the strange metal and felt a connection to something far beyond Kansas. But even then, he did not feel fear. He felt purpose. After graduating from high school, Clark set out into the wider world. He chose Metropolis, a bustling city filled with tall buildings, bright lights, and endless stories. He became a reporter for the Daily Planet, believing that truth was the strongest force a person could fight for. He wore glasses and adopted a shy, humble manner to hide who he really was. This is where he met Lois Lane, a bold and fearless reporter. She was confident, sharp, and dedicated to uncovering the truth. Clark admired her from the moment he met her. Lois found him a bit awkward but kind, never suspecting the secret strength behind his gentle smile. In Metropolis, Clark felt the urge to help more than ever before. He knew that his powers were meant to serve humanity, so he created a symbol for himself. He crafted a suit based on the blanket he had been wrapped in as an infant. He wore a flowing cape and placed the Kryptonian crest on his chest. Thus began the legend of Superman, the hero who would become a symbol of hope, continuing the calm origins of the last son of Krypton. When Clark first stepped into the world as Superman, the experience was overwhelming in a quiet, profound way. The city of Metropolis moved quickly, full of people rushing to work, cabs honking, and construction cranes lifting bright steel beams into the sky. Above all of that noise and motion, Clark sensed every heartbeat, every breath, and every small cry for help. No matter where he stood, he could hear someone in distress or someone in need, and each sound tugged gently at his conscience. At first, Clark wondered how he would ever manage such responsibility. The world suddenly felt immense and full of problems far beyond the reach of any ordinary person. He stood on the edge of a tall building one morning, the wind brushing through his cape, and listened. Somewhere blocks away, a taxi skidded against the pavement. Farther still, a small child called after a lost pet. Even farther, beyond the city limits, farm animals stirred on ranches he had never visited. Clark breathed deeply and reminded himself of the lessons Jonathan and Martha had given him. "You cannot save every moment," Jonathan had said, "but you can save the ones right before you." With this simple grounding thought, Clark centered himself. He let the sounds of chaos fade into the background. He focused on the strongest, clearest cries for help. His first rescue came almost naturally. A woman dangled from a broken fire escape 12 floors above the street. Clark heard her scream before anyone else did. He did not hesitate. His feet left the ground, at first in a slow drift, then in a smooth, rising arc. The wind flowed past his face as he moved. To the woman, it must have seemed like an angel descending. He reached out gently, lifted her with effortless care, and carried her to safety on the rooftop. News of this mysterious hero spread quickly. The Daily Planet printed a headline with Lois Lane's bold reporting. She wrote about a man faster than any train, stronger than any machine, and able to appear in the sky at a moment's notice. She called him a savior, though she made sure to note that he seemed humble and composed. Across the city, people speculated about who he might be. Some thought he was a government experiment. Others suggested he was an alien. Clark read the articles with quiet amusement, knowing that parts of all those theories held truth. Still, he kept his disguise. As Clark Kent, he blended into the crowd, adjusting his glasses and offering soft smiles. As Superman, he soared above them, his cape flowing like a silent banner of hope. His rescues became more frequent. He lifted cars to free trapped passengers. He stood between collapsing buildings and innocent people. He intercepted runaway trains by placing himself in front of them, letting the full force press against him until they stopped safely. Each time, he acted with calm and gentleness, even when the danger was great. Clark approached every situation with the patience of his parents, believing that steadiness was as important as strength. When people looked into his eyes, they saw reassurance, not fear. As Superman grew into a familiar figure in Metropolis, he began shaping what the people believed a hero should be. He never acted out of anger or pride. He never sought praise. He simply did what was right because it was right. This set him apart in a world that often celebrated loud victories and bold personalities. Superman was calm, thoughtful, and soft-spoken. And because of that, people began to trust him deeply. Lois Lane, meanwhile, continued to chase stories involving this new hero. She often arrived at the scene of an accident just after Superman had finished the rescue. She wrote about him with awe, fascination, and fierce journalistic rigor. She sought answers about his origins and his purpose. Clark admired how sharp and determined she was. Sometimes during lunch breaks at the Planet, Clark listened as she passionately argued her theories about Superman with co-workers. He wanted to smile and tell her everything, but he knew the truth would complicate her life and would put her in danger. So Clark remained mild and gentle, letting Lois form her own conclusions. Superman's influence reached far beyond the city. Across the nation, people felt a quiet shift in spirit. Newspapers delivered uplifting stories of his rescues to every corner of the country. Children wrote letters to him, thanking him for saving lives. Parents spoke warmly about the hope he inspired. Clark, still adjusting to this attention, felt humbled. He did not seek fame, but he understood that hope was powerful. If his actions helped people sleep easier at night or walk through their days with more confidence, then he was accomplishing something greater than any rescue. As time passed, criminals in Metropolis became aware that their actions were no longer unchecked. Superman's presence discouraged violence in subtle ways. People felt safer walking home at night. Those who sought to harm others now had to wonder whether a shadow in the sky might swoop down at any moment. Clark did not enjoy intimidating anyone, but he believed in protecting the innocent. He simply stood for justice, and justice often required a strong but peaceful presence. Back at the Daily Planet, Clark Kent built his identity carefully. He kept his posture slightly slouched, his voice soft, and his demeanor non-threatening. He wore oversized jackets and kept his hair slightly tousled. He gave the impression of a shy reporter who meant well but did not stand out. It was a brilliant disguise because no one could imagine that such a quiet man could be the powerful figure in the sky. Perry White, the editor, liked Clark and praised him for his honest work. Jimmy Olsen considered him a friend, often excitedly showing Clark photographs he had taken. Lois found Clark kind, but sometimes exasperatingly timid. Still, she trusted him as a colleague who always treated her with respect. Clark sometimes found it amusing how the people closest to him saw only the surface. At times, he almost forgot he was acting because he genuinely cared for the people at the planet. His double life grew easier because the values of Clark Kent and Superman never contradicted one another. Both identities centered around truth, justice, and compassion. Although the modern world eventually added more layers to Superman's identity, his core values were defined in these early days. Truth was his foundation. He believed that every person deserved honesty and fairness. Justice was his compass, guiding him toward the noble purpose of defending the vulnerable. These values were not born only from Krypton or the shining legacy of his biological parents. They took shape in the warm kitchen of a Kansas farmhouse through simple conversations and daily lessons from the people who raised him. Jonathan and Martha Kent were always in Clark's thoughts as he patrolled Metropolis. He often imagined their voices guiding him through hard choices. If he faced a situation where anger threatened to cloud his judgment, he would recall how Jonathan spoke calmly in times of trouble. If he felt overwhelmed by the weight of expectation, he imagined Martha resting a gentle hand on his shoulder, reminding him to breathe. These memories shaped him and helped him remain grounded. One evening, as the sun set behind the tall buildings, Superman perched on the highest tower in the city. The warm glow of the fading light cast long shadows across the streets below. He listened to the rustling of wind between the buildings, the soft chatter of people heading home, and the distant hum of cars. It was in these quiet moments that Clark connected most deeply with his purpose. The world was full of difficulties, but it was also full of beauty. He wanted to protect that beauty. Superman's early adventures were not about battling cosmic threats or fighting colossal villains. They were about lifting others up, helping in ways that were small but meaningful, and guiding society toward a more hopeful future. The people of Metropolis began to see him not just as a hero, but as a guardian of their peace. They trusted him with their fears, their hopes, and their dreams. By the time Superman had become a household name, he had already cemented himself as an icon of the era. Newspapers praised his courage. Citizens spoke of him with admiration. The older generation saw in him a promise that the world could be better. Children saw a figure who would always catch them if they fell. Though the world did not know his alien origin or his connection to Krypton, they felt the spirit of who he was. Krypton had given him life, but Earth had given him purpose. And as the night settled over Metropolis, with the streetlights glowing softly and the stars twinkling far above, Superman stood watch. His cape fluttered in the gentle breeze, His eyes scanned the horizon with calm awareness, his heart beat with quiet determination. This was only the beginning. The myth grows beneath a yellow sun. As Superman became more established in Metropolis, something gentle and steady began to take shape in the hearts of the people. It was not fear, and it was not disbelief. Instead, it was a quiet, growing trust. The citizens did not see him as a distant figure or an unreachable force. They felt he was someone who cared, someone who watched from above, not as a ruler, but as a guardian who respected the lives below. When he soared overhead, parents would lift their children up to see him. Old men sitting on benches would tip their hats. Vendors in crowded markets would pause just long enough to point at the streak of blue and red gliding across the sky. Superman never responded with theatrics. He simply dipped his head politely if he passed close by, then continued on his way with his calm, steady rhythm. For Clark, these reactions carried a sense of warmth that he never could have imagined when he first arrived in Metropolis. He felt connected to these people, their joys, their struggles, their hopes. Yet he always remembered his small beginnings in Kansas. Whenever the weight of expectation began pressing on his shoulders, he thought of the wide fields behind the Kent farmhouse. He imagined the soft creaking of the wooden porch swing where Martha sewed and Jonathan cleaned his boots after a long day. Those memories helped him stay grounded in humility. One evening, Clark returned to Smallville after several weeks in the city. He had felt a longing that he did not fully understand. When he landed softly behind the barn, he walked around the corner and saw Martha carrying a basket of laundry. Her eyes lit up with gentle surprise. She set aside her basket and embraced him with the same tenderness she had shown since the day she found him. Jonathan stepped out shortly after, wiping oil from his hands, and greeted Clark with a proud smile. Clark sat with them on the porch, listening to the night insects and the rustle of wind through the cornfields. It was in these simple moments that he rediscovered his sense of calm. Jonathan asked how the city was treating him. Clark gave a modest reply, downplaying his heroic deeds. Martha just smiled knowingly. Parents can always see the truth, even when their child wears a disguise. While Clark cherished these quiet visits, he knew he could not stay long. The world continued moving, and Metropolis needed him. After saying goodbye, he lifted into the sky once more, watching as the farmhouse shrank beneath him. It reminded him that no matter how powerful he became, his heart belonged to the simple values taught by two kind people who found a baby in a field. Back in Metropolis, Superman encountered situations that taught him new things about humanity. Not every problem could be solved with strength. Sometimes he had to use patience. Sometimes he had to listen more than he acted. There were days when he sat on a rooftop simply observing the flow of life below. He watched people carry groceries, exchange conversations, laugh with friends, and comfort those who were upset. These human experiences taught Clark more about his mission than any battle ever could. His relationship with Lois Lane deepened during this period, though not in the way one might expect. Lois admired Superman, often writing articles praising his bravery and dedication. But she remained unaware of Clark Kent's deeper connection to the hero she admired. Clark watched her as she typed furiously at her desk, sometimes chasing a story late into the night. She was bold, unafraid, and passionate about exposing injustice. Clark respected her immensely. He often wished he could tell her the truth, yet he also feared the burden such knowledge would place on her. He carried that tension quietly, allowing their friendship to grow naturally at the planet. One afternoon, Metropolis experienced a power outage that spread across half the city. Elevators stalled between floors, traffic lights blinked out, and people found themselves stranded on subways. Clark immediately scanned the city with his heightened senses. He located an elderly man trapped in a dark elevator, breathing heavily in fear. In another part of town, a mother tried to calm her crying child in a stalled subway car. Clark moved from emergency to emergency with quiet efficiency. He did not announce his presence or linger for gratitude. He simply appeared, resolved the problem with gentle precision, and moved on. When the lights finally returned, the city buzzed with stories of how Superman helped restore order, one small act at a time. These small moments mattered. They revealed the kind of hero Superman wanted to be. He was not interested in glory or spectacle. He found meaning in helping people feel safe, even during mundane disruptions. When he flew back to the planet after the outage, Lois shared her story draft with Clark. She described Superman as a calm force in chaos, someone who inspired bravery simply through his presence. Clark read the article while sipping coffee, hiding a slight smile behind the rim of the mug. Superman's early months in Metropolis shaped the symbol he would become. His presence was not defined by cosmic threats or grand battles. It was defined by compassion. He focused on the ordinary person, the everyday crisis, and the quiet needs of a bustling city. When he returned home each night to his modest apartment, he felt satisfied knowing that even small actions could ripple outward and lift the spirits of thousands. One night, while patrolling the sky, Superman paused above the city and listened deeply. The sounds of Metropolis blended into a gentle chorus. He heard laughter from a family sharing a late dinner. He heard someone practicing a trumpet on a balcony. He heard a couple whispering promises to each other as they walked hand in hand along the river. These moments filled him with a profound sense of connection. The world was far from perfect, but it held a beauty worth protecting. This beauty reminded him again of Krypton. He sometimes wondered what his homeworld might have become if it had survived. He pictured towering crystal towers untouched by destruction, and cities glowing beneath the red sun. He wondered about the life he might have led as Kal-El. But each time these thoughts drifted through his mind, he returned to the truth. Earth was his home now. The Kents were his parents. Metropolis was his city. His purpose was here. As dawn crept across the horizon, Superman descended slowly to the Daily Planet rooftop. The golden light bathed the world in warmth. Clark softened his posture, adjusted his glasses, and stepped toward the stairwell door. In those few quiet steps, he shifted from Superman back into the gentle, humble reporter. And as Clark Kent, he carried forward the same values, the same compassion, and the same belief in truth. The Golden Age and the rise of a symbol. The early days of Superman in Metropolis became more than a series of rescues. They began shaping the cultural heartbeat of an entire era. Life in the late 1930s and early 1940s was full of uncertainty. The world was still recovering from the long shadow of economic struggle, and the larger tensions that would soon erupt across the globe were beginning to stir. In this landscape, the presence of Superman felt almost like a quiet miracle. He was not only a figure of strength, but a figure of reassurance, someone who walked calmly through the chaos of changing times. As Clark continued his work at the Daily Planet, people in Metropolis settled into a new rhythm. On any given morning, sidewalks bustled with office workers, newsboys shouted headlines, and taxi drivers argued cheerfully at intersections. Woven into this familiar tapestry was the comforting knowledge that somewhere above, Superman might be watching. This sense of invisible protection made the city feel a little brighter. Children played with more confidence in parks. Couples walked hand in hand at dusk, knowing that danger felt a little farther away. It was as if the entire city breathed just a little easier. Even in these early years, Superman encountered adversaries who tested not only his abilities, but also his judgment. Some enemies were ordinary people driven by greed or anger. Others were inventors whose experiments had gone in terrible directions. There was an inventor whose unstable energy device threatened to collapse an entire block. Superman approached that moment with a calm mind, lifting the machine with careful precision and flying it high into the sky where it could safely collapse in a burst of harmless light. Afterward, he helped the inventor rebuild his lab, offering encouragement rather than condemnation. This gentle approach defined Superman in a way that brute force never could. There were also cases where he had to confront criminal gangs who believed they could outsmart him. In these cases, Superman never sought to intimidate. He allowed the criminals to see that violence would not break his composure. He would lift their car with one hand or block their bullets with his chest, but he always encouraged them to surrender peacefully. Many found themselves doing exactly that, unable to understand how someone so powerful could act with such humility. Meanwhile, Clark Kent continued to develop his identity with thoughtful intention. He wrote articles about the people Superman rescued, highlighting their courage and resilience. Clark wanted the world to see that ordinary people mattered just as much as the extraordinary hero who helped them. Perry White often complimented Clark for his empathy, noting that his stories felt grounded and human. Lois would read Clark's articles and sometimes tilt her head with suspicion, wondering how he captured such vivid details. Clark always responded with a shy smile and a vague explanation about being in the right place at the right time. During this period, Superman's strength slowly evolved. His body adapted more deeply to the yellow sun of Earth, granting him heightened abilities that grew little by little. At first, he could leap great distances, crossing entire streets in a single bound. Over time, these leaps became longer and smoother until, one day, he found himself floating rather than falling. He practiced this sensation carefully, letting the wind cradle him. Soon he understood he could control his ascent, gliding with clarity and purpose. Flight became as natural to him as walking. His hearing expanded to the point where he could hear the faint hum of machinery blocks away, or the gentle rhythm of a heartbeat through steel. His vision sharpened, allowing him to read signs across the city from the top of a tower. Each new ability carried a sense of wonder, balanced by his steady moral upbringing. The more he could do, the more he felt responsible for doing good. As Superman grew more popular, stories about him spread far beyond Metropolis. Radio broadcasts began dramatizing his adventures. Families gathered around living room radios, listening to calm narrators describe the exploits of the gentle hero from the sky. Children imagined him soaring above them. Parents saw him as a reassuring counterbalance to a world that often felt unstable. In quiet homes across the nation, Superman became a symbol of hope, even for those who would never see him in person. Around this same time, a new element of danger entered Superman's world. It arrived quietly, like a whisper from his lost past. Strange glowing fragments of mineral appeared in scattered locations. These pieces shimmered with an eerie green light, unlike any stone found on Earth. Though the world did not yet know its name, this was the first appearance of kryptonite. These fragments carried traces of the destruction of Krypton, their energy twisted and unstable. When Superman approached one such fragment for the first time, he felt a faint weakness pulse through his body. It was unlike anything he had ever known. This was the first indication that although he was powerful beyond understanding, he was not invulnerable. Even then, Superman approached these discoveries with calm caution rather than fear. During these years, Lois Lane continued to pursue the truth behind Superman. She interviewed witnesses, followed trails of clues, and tried to understand what motivated such a figure. She admired his strength, but she admired his compassion even more. There was something about the way Superman spoke to those he rescued, something gentle and sincere. She could not quite explain it, but she sensed a kindness that went deeper than any mask or suit. Clark found himself navigating the delicate balance between his two identities. He enjoyed quiet lunches with co-workers, laughing softly at Jimmy's enthusiasm, or listening patiently to Perry's booming commentary. Yet he also felt the constant pull of responsibility. No matter how peaceful the moment, he remained aware of every distant cry for help, every tremor beneath the city. He had trained himself to listen without panic, choosing carefully which situations required immediate action and which ones could be resolved by others. Superman's presence continued shaping the moral tone of the era. Even when he was not present, people made better choices simply because they believed he would want them to. Children shared more kindly. Workers stayed honest in their duties. It was as though the world had gained a quiet guiding light, and that light made people feel braver, kinder, and more hopeful. By the early 1940s, Superman was no longer just a hero. He had become a symbol woven into the cultural fabric. His image represented the possibility of goodness in a world that needed reassurance. Newspapers published illustrations of him standing proudly with his cape flowing. Posters encouraged unity and hope, inspired by his steady presence. When people faced uncertainty, they imagined Superman watching over them with calm, unwavering confidence. As this part draws to a close, Superman stands at the heart of Metropolis during a time when the world itself is changing. His legend continues to grow softly, steadily, and peacefully, preparing the way for deeper stories still to unfold. As the world journeyed deeper into the 1940s, the presence of Superman brought a sense of security that stretched beyond the borders of Metropolis. It was a time when nations wrestled with tension, rising conflict, and uncertainty about the future. People everywhere found themselves looking for symbols that reminded them of courage, unity, and hope. Even though Superman was a fictional hero to many who heard about him secondhand, his presence offered a sense of reassurance during a troubled chapter of history. The Daily Planet continued publishing stories about his feats, and his popularity spread from city to city. But what mattered most was not the praise itself. It was the emotional effect these stories had on people. A father who had lost his job found comfort imagining a hero who believed in fairness. Children who felt anxious about the changing world found security in the image of a calm guardian soaring through the skies. Mothers read newspaper columns about Superman and felt grateful for the small sense of peace those stories inspired. He was not a distant mythical figure. He was close enough to feel real, yet grand enough to lift the hearts of millions. At this time in Superman's early existence, his abilities were still evolving. He was learning what it meant to be the last son of a distant world and the guardian of a new one. He discovered that he could run faster than many aircraft, lift pieces of machinery with ease, and hear whispers carried across entire neighborhoods. However, he always used his powers with restraint. He never flaunted his strength, nor did he seek to overwhelm those around him. Instead, he focused on the people themselves, on their fears, on their needs, and on the quiet courage they displayed every day. He was powerful, but his compassion was what stood out most. During one peaceful afternoon, Clark Kent sat at his desk in the Daily Planet office, surrounded by the lively rhythm of the newsroom. Typewriters clicked, phones rang, reporters held animated conversations about ongoing stories. Lois Lane burst into the room with a stack of notes for her latest article, moving with purpose and confidence. Perry White shouted instructions, demanding deadlines and clarity. Through all this motion, Clark maintained a calm presence, quietly reading his notes and preparing his next article. He had a small smile on his face, enjoying the familiar energy of the newsroom. Then, almost imperceptibly, Clark paused. His senses caught something faint. A minor tremor, the distant groan of steel bending, the muffled sound of concrete shifting under pressure. To everyone else, these sounds were non-existent. But to Clark, they were a warning. Without drawing attention to himself, he rose from his chair and excused himself with soft, polite words. Lois barely noticed him leave, too focused on her own work. Perry shouted something in Clark's direction, assuming he was going to check a lead. Clark nodded gently and stepped toward the stairwell. By the time he reached the rooftop, he had already removed his jacket and adjusted his tie. The wind brushed his face as he stepped forward, letting the city fade beneath him. Then he took off, rising into the blue sky like a calm breath given form. He traveled toward the sound that had drawn him, a failing bridge on the outskirts of the city. A truck full of workers had been crossing when the structure began to give way. They held onto the railings, afraid the entire bridge might collapse. Superman arrived silently, landing on the steel beams with the lightness of a feather. He assessed the situation calmly, then placed his hands under one of the crumbling supports. With steady pressure, he lifted the beam back into alignment. The workers watched with awe as the shaking stopped. Superman then guided them carefully across the bridge and to safety. When they thanked him, he responded softly, almost humbly, saying he was glad they were unharmed. He flew away before they could ask anything more. Back at the Daily Planet, Clark returned to his desk minutes after the rescue, his hair slightly tousled from the wind. Jimmy Olsen joked that maybe Clark had been caught in a gust. Lois glanced up, slightly suspicious, but mostly amused. She teased him gently. unaware that the man she teased had just saved half a dozen lives. Clark only smiled and continued his work. This balance between action and anonymity became a defining rhythm of his life. In the sky, he was Superman, a symbol of courage who lifted collapsing structures and protected entire communities. On the ground, he was Clark Kent, a quiet reporter who helped shape the narrative of truth. Both identities were rooted in the same values, but each one allowed him to understand the world from a different perspective. Through Clark, he learned how ordinary people lived, what they feared, and what they hoped for. Through Superman, he found ways to support those hopes. As the United States entered World War II, the world around Superman shifted again. Factories increased production. Families sent loved ones overseas. Radios carried constant broadcasts about battles and events unfolding across oceans. In these uncertain times, Superman became a beacon of strength and integrity. Stories of his heroism traveled on airwaves and in comic strips, offering a comforting image of courage. Though his battles in the comics reflected a simpler form of wartime symbolism, the emotional impact was profound. He stood for unity, resilience, and the belief that justice could triumph even in dark times. Children listened to Superman stories on the radio as evening settled into night. They heard narrators describe his calm voice, his steady presence, and the reassuring way he handled danger. These stories softened the anxiety many families felt as they awaited news from loved ones abroad. Superman represented the ideal of a world where people stood up for one another, where compassion mattered, and where good people worked together for the common good. Metropolis itself grew during this time. The skyline reached higher. Streets became busier. New technologies emerged. With every change, Superman adjusted. He watched new inventions with curiosity, often inspecting them from the sky, or visiting factories as Clark Kent to write insightful articles about progress. His interest in the world's growth came from a sincere desire to understand humanity better. He wanted to know what people dreamed of building and how those dreams shaped their future. In the quiet moments between rescues, Superman often reflected on his own origins. He wondered what Jor-El and Lara would think of Earth. He imagined them observing its oceans, its forests, its cities full of life. He imagined his father examining Earth's technology with scientific enthusiasm, and his mother admiring the simple joys of human communities. These reflections connected him to his lost homeworld, even as he grew more deeply rooted in Earth's well-being. Such reflections shaped his understanding of responsibility. He knew he possessed abilities that could change the course of events on a massive scale. Yet he also knew that true leadership required humility. Superman never sought to dominate or impose his will. Instead, he focused on lending help where it was needed, allowing people to solve their own problems whenever possible. This restraint became one of the hallmarks of his character. As night deepened over Metropolis, the city glowed with thousands of windows illuminated like stars scattered across the ground. Superman often hovered quietly above this scene, letting the serenity wash over him. He heard the soft murmur of traffic fading, the clinking of dinner dishes in distant apartments, and the steady rhythm of the city settling into rest. In these moments, he felt at peace, knowing that his presence allowed others to sleep a little more comfortably. This brings us smoothly toward the next continuation. As the 1940s unfolded and the world shifted under the weight of global conflict, Superman found himself witnessing moments of profound human resilience. Even with all his strength, it was often the courage of ordinary people that left the deepest impression on him. He saw neighbors helping one another carry heavy bags of flour during ration periods. He saw communities gather in church halls to sew blankets for families in need. He saw teachers comforting children who wrote letters to loved ones stationed overseas. These acts of gentleness shaped his understanding of humanity more than any threat he ever faced. On many evenings, Superman flew above quiet neighborhoods where lights glowed softly behind curtains. Inside those homes, families huddled around radios, listening to news updates and hoping for positive reports. He could hear the crackle of broadcast signals drifting from open windows, mixing with the distant hum of the city. He never interrupted these moments. Instead, he hovered high above, keeping watch as parents tucked their children under warm blankets. The simple rhythm of domestic life reminded him of Jonathan and Martha and the peaceful nights he spent in Smallville listening to the calm chorus of insects beneath the wide Kansas moon. One night, while gliding between tall buildings, Superman paused in the shadow of a large clock tower that overlooked the western edge of Metropolis. It was late, and the city was quieter than usual. As he stood there, he heard a faint cry coming from a dark alley several blocks away. Without hesitation, he moved toward the sound. When he arrived, he found a young boy sitting on a crate, knees pulled to his chest, tears streaming down his face. The child had lost his parents in the crowd after a city parade. Superman knelt beside him, speaking softly, letting the boy know he was safe. He carried the child through the sky at a gentle pace, pointing out landmarks to distract him from his fear. When they landed near the parade grounds, the boy ran into his parents' arms, relieved and full of joy. Superman did not linger for thanks. He stepped back, nodded once, and quietly disappeared into the night sky. Moments like this deepened his appreciation for human connection. They reminded him that while he could stop runaway trains and lift collapsing structures, sometimes the smallest interventions mattered the most. A comforting word, a steady hand, a calm presence in a frightened moment. These experiences influenced the gentle nature that became central to his legend. Meanwhile, Clark Kent continued building his career at the Daily Planet. He became well-liked among his colleagues for his honesty and humility. He took time to speak with custodians who worked late nights and interns who carried stacks of papers through the busy halls. He remembered every name, every story, because he valued people for who they were, not for what they could offer him. Jimmy Olsen often followed Clark around, eager to share the latest photograph he had taken. Lois continued to challenge him with her sharp mind and unwavering determination, often teasing him for being too reserved. Clark simply smiled, appreciating the strength of her spirit. During this time, Clark wrote a series of articles about community heroes, highlighting individuals who performed quiet acts of courage in their neighborhoods. He wrote about a nurse who worked double shifts to help returning veterans, about a teacher who opened her home to children who needed extra tutoring, and about a local mechanic who repaired bicycles for free so kids would have a safe way to get to school. These stories resonated deeply with readers. They reminded the people of Metropolis that heroism was not limited to those who wore capes or lifted steel beams. In many ways, these individuals represented the same values Superman fought for. While Clark worked at the planet, Superman faced challenges that tested his limits. As more green mineral fragments surfaced, he found himself weakened in their presence. These pieces of kryptonite carried the energy of his destroyed homeworld, radiating a harmful effect on his body. He learned to recognize their distinct glow and avoided their proximity whenever possible. Though these moments frightened him, they also reminded him of his vulnerability. They grounded him, reminding him that power did not make him invincible. It made him responsible. In one memorable instance, Superman arrived at the scene of a collapsed mine where several workers were trapped underground. Emergency crews struggled to reach them as the tunnels grew unstable. When Superman descended into the darkness, he could feel the presence of kryptonite buried somewhere deep within the rubble. His strength wavered and his breath grew heavy. Yet the sounds of trapped men calling for help pushed him forward. He moved slowly, carefully lifting beams despite the draining sensation in his limbs. When he finally reached the pocket of survivors, he urged them to follow him, guiding them through the maze of broken supports with calm reassurance. As they reached the surface, Superman staggered back, weakened but relieved that the workers were safe. He sat on a nearby hillside, breathing deeply as the kryptonite energy faded. For him, saving others mattered more than any discomfort he felt. During these years, the public perception of Superman continued to evolve. He was no longer simply a mysterious figure. He was a trusted presence woven into the rhythm of everyday life. Children wore homemade red capes and pretended to fly through schoolyards. Shop owners placed sketches of him in their windows as symbols of good fortune. Street musicians composed gentle melodies inspired by tales of Superman soaring above the city. He became a shared story, a collective comfort that people held close during difficult times. New forms of media carried his image farther than ever before. Radio programs filled living rooms with soundscapes of his heroic deeds. Animators created vivid cartoons showing him lifting cars, flying through storms, and standing tall against threats. The calm narration of these shows lulled families into a sense of safety, and many children drifted off to sleep, imagining Superman watching over them. These early animated depictions portrayed him as graceful, composed, and nearly effortless in his movements, qualities that reflected his gentle spirit rather than a desire for spectacle. As Metropolis expanded, Superman observed the changes with thoughtful curiosity. New factories rose near the riverfront, their chimneys sending plumes of steam into the sky. Modern transportation systems connected distant neighborhoods. Architects began designing skyscrapers that reached higher into the clouds, symbols of ambition and progress. Superman monitored these developments not only as a hero, but also as a journalist, filing articles as Clark Kent that examined the social impact of Metropolis' rapid growth. He wrote about the challenges faced by workers, the need for safe housing, and the importance of community support during times of transition. One evening, as the world settled beneath a soft blanket of twilight, Superman perched on the edge of a newly constructed building. The steel beams still held the scent of fresh paint. The horizon glowed with shades of rose and gold. From his vantage point, he could see the full expanse of Metropolis stretching outward, alive with possibility. He listened to the gentle hum of life below, feeling deeply connected to the city he protected. He reflected on how far he had come, from a small farm in Kansas to a symbol that people looked to for reassurance. He thought of Jor-El and Lara and wondered if they could see what he had become. He imagined their pride and their longing. He imagined Krypton thriving in another timeline and himself walking beneath its red sun as a young man. Yet his heart always returned to Earth. This was the home he knew, the world that shaped him, the place where he learned compassion, humility, and duty. The destiny his parents had given him did not dictate his path. It simply gave him a beginning. The rest he had chosen through kindness and courage. As night settled fully over Metropolis, windows lit up across the city like stars on the ground. Superman remained still for a long moment, taking in the quiet beauty of the scene. The world was vast, filled with challenges and uncertainties, but it was also filled with hope. And as long as hope existed, he would stand watch. As time passed and the early years of Superman became stories whispered lovingly through homes, classrooms, and radio broadcasts, the world began moving gently toward a new era. The late 1940s and early 1950s brought waves of change to culture, technology, and society. People looked forward with cautious optimism, hoping for peace and stability after long years of global conflict. Amid this transition, Superman continued to evolve, not only in his abilities, but in the symbolic meaning he carried for the world around him. The people of Metropolis had grown used to seeing a blue figure sweep gracefully across the clouds, his red cape trailing behind him like a calm banner of reassurance. Children pointed upward whenever they saw a streak of color in the sky. Shopkeepers paused with warm smiles as he passed overhead. In these quieter years, Superman became more than a protector. He became a companion to the rhythm of daily life, an unseen presence who made the city feel a little brighter. Every rooftop he touched, every rescue he completed, left behind a sense of gratitude that softened even the hardest days. Meanwhile, Clark Kent continued to develop as a reporter at the Daily Planet. He gained a reputation for careful, thoughtful writing. His articles focused not only on major events, but on the intricacies of human life. Whether he covered a story about new housing developments or a piece about the challenges faced by returning veterans, Clark approached each subject with empathy. His ability to understand people, to truly listen, made his writing resonate with readers. Perry White often complimented Clark, noting that his work carried a sincerity missing from many other journalists. Lois Lane continued to chase headlines with fierce determination. If a mysterious event occurred anywhere in Metropolis, Lois was often the first to arrive and the last to leave. Her boldness inspired many, and her articles painted vivid pictures of the world she explored. Though she remained largely unaware of Clark's secret identity, there were moments when she sensed something unusual about him. Sometimes she would catch him slipping away just before Superman appeared somewhere else in the city. At other times, she would see an expression on his face that seemed far braver than his meek manner suggested. But Lois dismissed these thoughts, chalking them up to coincidence or imagination. Superman's powers began to grow in ways that neither he nor the world could have predicted. Exposure to Earth's yellow sun steadily nourished him, awakening deeper layers of his Kryptonian physiology. His strength increased, allowing him to lift greater weights with effortless calm. His flight became smoother and more controlled. He could rise through the sky as gently as a leaf drifting upward on a breeze. His senses sharpened, allowing him to hear whispered conversations from miles away or see fine details from mountaintops. With these growing abilities came new responsibilities. Superman found himself facing threats more complex than simple accidents or criminal encounters. Strange scientific anomalies emerged in different parts of the city. Mystical energies flickered unexpectedly beneath the surface of ancient structures. Even the occasional visitor from distant worlds appeared, bringing with them unfamiliar languages and cosmic troubles. Each new situation required Superman to adapt, learn, and think creatively. He never approached these challenges with fear. Instead, he embraced them with calm curiosity, believing each moment was an opportunity to understand the universe a little better. It was during this period that Superman discovered his Fortress of Solitude, a sanctuary far from the noise of civilization. Hidden in the frozen stillness of the Arctic, the fortress stood as a monument to both Krypton and Earth. Its towering crystalline structures shimmered under the pale northern sun. Inside, Superman kept mementos of his heritage, holographic projections of Kryptonian landscapes, recordings left behind by his parents, and artifacts that reminded him of the world he never truly knew. He also kept pieces of Earth's history there, honoring the cultures he had grown to love. The fortress became a place of reflection, where he could contemplate his role as both an alien and a guardian of humanity. In these quiet moments within the fortress, Superman sometimes activated a crystalline console that displayed images of Krypton as it once was. He watched the shimmering cities, the peaceful rivers, and the red glow of Krypton's sun. He imagined the lives of his parents, the way they must have walked through their home, the sounds of their laughter echoing through the halls. These visions filled Superman with both longing and gratitude. Though Krypton was gone, its lessons lived within him. And though Earth was not his birthplace, it had given him everything he valued: family, love, purpose, and hope. Back in Metropolis, the Daily Planet staff continued their lively routines. Lois uncovered stories that others could not reach. Jimmy Olsen captured photographs of moments no one else could see. Perry White barked orders with a mixture of authority and affection. And Clark Kent moved quietly among them, always observant, always compassionate, always ready to slip away the moment someone needed help. Superman's early villains became more complicated during this era. Some adversaries harnessed dangerous technologies. Others sought power through manipulation. There were scientists who lost themselves in experiments they could not control. Criminals who built devices capable of great harm, and individuals who believed that Superman's compassion was a weakness to exploit. Yet Superman met each challenge with patience. He saw not only the actions of these individuals, but the pain or desperation that often drove them. Whenever possible, he sought peaceful resolutions. He believed that rehabilitation was more valuable than punishment, and that kindness could dissolve bitterness more effectively than force ever could. It was also during this era that a new presence entered Superman's life, a presence that changed him deeply. A young woman arrived on Earth in a spacecraft similar to the one that had brought him. She wore the family crest of the House of El and spoke a language he had not heard since infancy. Her name was Kara Zor-El. She was his cousin, a surviving member of his family from Krypton. Though she had spent her journey in suspended animation, the emotional impact of meeting someone who shared his heritage brought Superman an overwhelming sense of connection. He welcomed Kara with open arms and promised to guide her as she learned to adapt to Earth. Kara, soon known to the world as Supergirl, brought warmth and joy into Superman's life. She carried the memories of Krypton in ways he never could, for she had lived there as a child. She remembered the glow of the red sun, the scent of their cities, and the sound of voices speaking their native tongue. Superman cherished these memories, listening to her recollections like precious gifts. Together, they formed a bond that blended Kryptonian heritage with earthly compassion. Supergirl quickly grew into her own heroic role. She shared Superman's values, but expressed them with youthful enthusiasm and determination. While Superman moved with a calm, steady presence, Supergirl carried a spark of energy that inspired those around her. She often asked Superman questions about Earth customs, laughing with delight at traditions that seemed strange but charming. Clark guided her with gentle patience, teaching her the importance of protecting humanity while also encouraging her to forge her own path. The world welcomed Supergirl with excitement and curiosity, and Superman, who had spent so much of his life feeling alone in the cosmos, now had family beside him. These developments helped shape the next chapter of his journey, one filled with deeper stories, stronger bonds, and a broader understanding of what it meant to be a symbol of hope. Superman's world continued to expand as the 1950s and early 1960s unfolded. The city of Metropolis grew taller, louder, and more ambitious with each passing year. Streets filled with new automobiles that gleamed under the sun. Families moved into modern apartment buildings where televisions flickered with black and white images of entertainers, news anchors, and public service announcements. Clark Kent walked among these changes with calm appreciation, observing how humanity constantly reinvented itself. He found beauty in the determination people carried, a determination that reminded him of his own journey from the quiet cornfields of Kansas to the heart of one of the busiest cities in the world. During these years, Superman noticed that the world was shifting toward exploration and discovery. The idea of venturing beyond Earth's skies captured the imagination of nations. Rockets thundered toward the atmosphere, and scientists studied the stars with renewed passion. Superman, with his connection to another world, understood how profound this curiosity was. He sometimes flew above the atmosphere and looked down at Earth, admiring the fragile beauty of the planet suspended in the vastness of space. The curved horizon glowed softly, and the oceans shimmered with tones of deep blue. These moments filled him with a sense of peace. From that height, every conflict, every worry, every troubled headline seemed small compared to the shared humanity of the world below. Metropolis embraced its role as a beacon of modern innovation. New technologies were developed in laboratories, and inventors offered breakthroughs that promised to improve everyday life. With this progress came new dangers, as inventions occasionally malfunctioned or fell into the wrong hands. Superman encountered scientists driven too far by ambition. One such inventor created a device capable of pulling metals through the air using electromagnetic pulses. When the machine malfunctioned, it began pulling entire vehicles up from the streets, sending them spiraling dangerously above the city. Superman arrived swiftly, moving through the chaos with quiet determination. He carefully redirected the metal objects, catching some in midair and lowering them gently back to the ground. Then, with considerate patience, he helped the inventor shut down the machine safely, ensuring that no one was harmed. As new threats emerged, Superman's understanding of his abilities grew even deeper. He discovered that he could focus his eyes to generate concentrated beams of heat, a power that startled him the first time it happened. He learned to soften the beams, using them not for destruction, but for controlled precision. He once used the heat of his vision to gently melt the underside of an icy lake, freeing a pair of stranded fishermen who had fallen into a trapped cavern. In another instance, he used the same power to fuse weakened metal beams together, reinforcing a damaged support structure during a construction accident. Each discovery served as a reminder of the versatility of his Kryptonian heritage. The Fortress of Solitude also evolved during this period. Superman added new chambers carved from the shimmering ice. He created halls dedicated to the cultures of Earth, filling them with artifacts, books, and recordings from nations around the world. He wanted the fortress to be more than a sanctuary for himself. He wanted it to reflect the diversity of Earth, a place where he could contemplate the shared stories that united humanity. He also constructed a chamber devoted entirely to Krypton, filled with holographic projections that allowed him to walk through memories of the world he never truly knew. He spent long periods of reflection in these chambers, absorbing the lessons of the past and letting them guide his future. Superman's relationship with Supergirl deepened as they trained together. Kara Zor-El showed natural talent in adapting to Earth's gravity and atmosphere. She learned to fly with grace, practicing gentle swoops and loops across the sky. She often asked Superman questions about Earth's social customs, finding humor in the quirks of human behavior. Superman answered patiently, offering guidance with the kind of warmth an older brother would show. When she struggled with uncertainty about her place on Earth, Superman reassured her that she was free to choose her own path. He encouraged her to explore the world, to make friends, and to understand both her Kryptonian heritage and her new earthly home. Kara brought a sense of joy to Superman's life. Her youthful energy balanced his calm demeanor. Sometimes during training sessions, she would challenge him to flying races across the ocean or invite him to help rescue stranded animals in remote regions. These moments reminded Superman that even heroes needed companionship. Kara represented not only family, but also hope for the future, a future where Kryptonian values could blend harmoniously with the compassion of Earth. While these deeper connections formed, Superman's responsibilities in Metropolis continued to expand. Criminals devised more elaborate schemes as technology advanced. Some used advanced robotics. Others harnessed strange energies discovered through experimental physics. Superman responded with patience and intelligence, carefully assessing each threat before acting. His battles were rarely defined by brute force. They were defined by strategy, empathy, and the unwavering belief that every crisis could be handled without causing harm to innocents. Superman's interactions with humanity during this era revealed the depth of his character. One evening, he discovered a group of workers trapped in a subterranean tunnel after a support beam collapsed. He descended into the darkness, the warm glow of his heat vision lighting the way. The workers were frightened and exhausted, their voices trembling as they tried to remain composed. Superman spoke to them gently, offering reassuring words. He lifted debris with deliberate care, ensuring the tunnel remained stable. When he guided them to the surface, the workers embraced one another with relief and gratitude. Superman stepped back quietly, allowing them to savor their reunion. Clark Kent continued writing thoughtful pieces about the evolving world. He reported on scientific breakthroughs, cultural events, and human interest stories. His writing reflected the gentle spirit within him, capturing the humanity of each event without exaggeration. Readers appreciated his sincerity, and his articles helped shape public understanding of the world during a time of transformation. Clark understood that his role as a journalist was just as important as his role as Superman. Words, when arranged with honesty and care, could inspire people in ways that physical actions alone could not. During quiet nights, Superman often returned to the Arctic to think about the growing complexity of his life. He stood in the silent expanse outside the fortress, the cold wind brushing against his cape. The sky above him shimmered with stars. In these still moments, he contemplated his evolving powers, the values he carried, and the responsibilities that came with them. He thought of his parents on Krypton and the sacrifice they made to save his life. He thought of Jonathan and Martha Kent and the lessons they instilled in him through the simplest acts of kindness. Each memory guided him, ensuring he never lost sight of the humility and compassion that defined him. As humanity began to dream of exploring space, Superman felt a sense of quiet excitement. He saw echoes of Krypton's curiosity in Earth's scientific progress. He knew that one day humans would walk among the stars, forging paths into the unknown. He wanted to be there to support that journey, not to lead it, but to ensure it unfolded in a way that protected life and encouraged unity. The dawn of the Silver Age of heroes had begun, and Superman found himself at the center of a world full of imagination and possibility. As the 1960s unfolded, the world settled into a period of rapid innovation and profound cultural change. Metropolis reflected this transformation clearly. New buildings rose along the skyline, their gleaming windows catching the sunlight in shimmering reflections. The streets grew busier with each passing month as people moved toward the city seeking opportunity. Music drifted from open windows, newspapers fluttered in the breeze, and children played along sidewalks lined with small shops and diners. Through all this movement, Superman continued to serve as the quiet guardian who watched over the metropolis he loved. During this era, the concept of parallel worlds and alternate dimensions first brushed against Superman's life in unexpected ways. Scientists across the globe were pushing the boundaries of physics, experimenting with theories about overlapping realities and invisible forces. Some of those experiments caused temporary rifts, tiny fractures in the fabric of space that Superman could sense. He sometimes found himself pulled into brief moments of disorientation, as if the world flickered between different versions of itself. His Kryptonian biology allowed him to remain calm even as the environment around him wavered. He would steady himself, examine the disturbance, and gently correct the imbalance using his strength or his heat vision to stabilize the energy around him. These subtle occurrences introduced him to the possibility of a broader universe, one filled with realities beyond the single timeline he knew. As scientific curiosity surged, new villains emerged who sought to exploit these discoveries. Some of them were brilliant minds who fell victim to ambition, trying to harness powers they could not fully understand. One scientist built a device capable of bending light and matter, creating illusions that blurred reality. When the machine malfunctioned, entire city blocks seemed to shift places, causing confusion among the citizens. Superman arrived with his usual calm presence, guiding people through the distorted streets and using his heightened senses to find the source of the disturbance. He disabled the device carefully, making sure not to harm the inventor who had lost control of his own creation. Even in these chaotic moments, Superman remained patient, understanding that fear often drove people to act recklessly. Clark Kent continued to grow in his dual role, balancing journalism with his life as Superman. The Daily Planet thrived during these years, becoming a cornerstone of truth in an era filled with uncertainty. Clark wrote articles that encouraged thoughtful reflection about the changing world. He interviewed scientists, community leaders, teachers, and ordinary citizens whose quiet actions shaped the city. His pieces highlighted the strength of everyday people, reminding readers that they played an important part in the collective story of Metropolis. Lois Lane continued to lead bold investigations into corruption and injustice, and Clark admired her unwavering dedication. At times, he wished he could share his deeper truths with her, but he also recognized the importance of keeping her safe. Superman's relationship with humanity deepened during this time as well. He found himself drawn into moments of personal significance, often choosing to help in ways that did not require dramatic displays of power. He once helped a young violinist recover an instrument damaged during a street accident, carefully repairing the delicate wood with his precise heat vision. On another day, he helped an elderly man carry groceries up several flights of stairs after the building elevator broke down. These small gestures, unnoticed by most, held deep meaning for Superman. They reminded him that being a hero was not defined by spectacle alone, but by empathy and service. The Fortress of Solitude became more intricate as Superman encountered new mysteries. He added sections dedicated to interdimensional phenomena, storing artifacts from alternate timelines he stumbled upon during his adventures. Some of these items glowed with energies that resonated strangely with his Kryptonian physiology. He studied them with curiosity, hoping to understand how different universes might connect. The fortress grew into a sanctuary not only for memories of Krypton, but also for knowledge of the wider cosmos. Its crystalline halls stood silent and timeless, offering Superman a place to reflect and learn. Superman's expanding knowledge brought new questions as well. He sometimes wondered what his presence meant for Earth. He questioned how much he should intervene in human affairs and whether his influence might overshadow the natural growth of civilizations. These thoughts weighed on him, especially as his powers continued to evolve. He could move faster than sound, see through structures with ease, and hear the faintest cries even from miles away. With every new ability, he reminded himself to remain humble. He trusted humanity to guide its own progress, stepping in only when others could not protect themselves. His interactions with Supergirl remained a bright source of joy. Kara continued to adapt to life on Earth, exploring its cultures with excitement. She visited museums, watched films, and learned languages. She often accompanied Superman on missions, learning to use her powers responsibly. When she struggled with the emotional weight of losing Krypton, Superman offered compassion born from his own experience. They spoke for hours in the fortress, sharing memories and imagining what their family might have been like if Krypton had survived. These conversations brought them closer, forging a bond that transcended their roles as heroes. As the world entered the heart of the Silver Age, Superman encountered foes whose intentions reached beyond mere earthly ambitions. Some adversaries sought to test him intellectually. Others challenged him ethically, forcing him to make decisions that balanced justice with mercy. Each encounter deepened his understanding of the world and of himself. He learned that true strength came not from overpowering an opponent, but from understanding their motivations and resolving conflicts without unnecessary harm. Clark Kent, meanwhile, continued to develop deeper relationships at the Daily Planet. His co-workers saw him as reliable and kind, someone who listened patiently and offered comfort without seeking attention. Jimmy Olsen admired Clark more than he ever admitted, often asking his advice about photography or life. Lois occasionally asked Clark for his perspective on challenging stories, sensing his quiet wisdom. Clark valued these connections more than the accolades he received as Superman. They reminded him of the humanity he cherished. By the end of this era, Superman stood at the center of a vast and interconnected world. His presence offered hope during times of uncertainty, and his actions inspired millions to believe in kindness and justice. The world changed around him, evolving through cultural shifts, scientific advancements, and new imaginative horizons. Yet Superman remained constant. He remained the gentle guardian who watched the skies with care, who helped wherever he could, and who always believed in the goodness of humanity. With the Silver Age coming fully into view, Superman stood ready for the new stories and challenges that would define the next chapters of his life. The universe was expanding, both literally and figuratively, and Superman would soon find himself at the forefront of ideas that stretched far beyond Earth. Wherever these paths led, he carried with him the values instilled in him by Jonathan and Martha Kent, the heritage of Krypton, and the unwavering belief that hope was the strongest force in the universe. As the world stepped deeper into the 1960s, the image of Superman became woven into the everyday imagination of people across the globe. His presence in Metropolis was steady and familiar, like a lighthouse that shone quietly over a bustling harbor. He did not demand attention. He did not act with theatrics. Instead, he moved through the sky with the gentle assurance of someone who believed wholeheartedly in the goodness of the world he protected. Even when he acted with great speed or extraordinary power, there was always a softness in his movements, a sense that his actions were shaped more by compassion than by force. During these years, the world was fascinated by the idea of exploration and progress. New inventions appeared with surprising frequency. Scientists made breakthroughs in robotics, energy manipulation, and the early theories of computers. Cities began experimenting with new forms of transportation and new architectural designs. As Metropolis grew taller and more advanced, Superman found himself navigating a city that changed almost as quickly as the people living in it. Clark Kent observed these cultural shifts with thoughtful curiosity. He saw how technology inspired both excitement and unease. Some embraced the future with open arms, imagining a world made easier through innovation. Others felt overwhelmed by the pace of change, worried that tradition might fade in the midst of rapid progress. Clark wrote about these feelings in his articles, offering empathy to both perspectives. His writing carried a tone that reminded readers of the value of balance, the importance of moving forward while remembering the lessons of the past. Inside the Daily Planet building, Clark moved through the familiar routines of the newsroom. Perry White barked orders with his usual combination of gruffness and affection. Lois Lane darted from interview to interview, returning with notebooks full of quotations and thoughts. Jimmy Olsen wandered the hallways with his camera slung loosely around his neck, always searching for the next perfect shot. Clark felt comfort in these rhythms. The newsroom was a kind of heartbeat for the city, capturing its daily stories and weaving them into the larger tale of human progress. Superman, however, experienced the era in a different way. While Clark saw the world from ground level, Superman saw it from the sky. He often hovered above Metropolis during late afternoons, watching the sunlight reflect off the newly built towers. He had a vantage point no one else possessed. From above, he could see how neighborhoods grew outward, how traffic patterns changed, and how people moved through their days with increasing complexity. He learned to anticipate where help might be needed, whether at a construction site, near a busy intersection, or along the docks where new shipments arrived from distant places. During one quiet evening patrol, Superman noticed a strange glow emanating from the waterfront. He descended, slowly, letting the cool breeze of the harbor flow around him. When he reached the source of the glow, he discovered a group of researchers huddled around a large device that was emitting pulses of light. The machine was designed to study fluctuations in energy fields. But something had gone wrong. The pulses were growing stronger, creating waves that distorted the air around them. The scientists panicked as the device began to collapse inward, threatening to pull the surrounding equipment into a dangerous implosion. Superman stepped forward with calm confidence. He spoke gently to the researchers, encouraging them to step back and take shelter. Then he placed his hands on the machine, feeling the unstable energy vibrate through its core. Using his strength and precise control, he dismantled the failing components piece by piece, dispersing the energy safely before it could cause harm. The researchers watched in stunned silence as the glow faded. Superman turned to them with a reassuring nod before lifting into the night sky once again. Moments like these defined the era. Superman was not simply battling monsters or confronting cosmic beings. He was guiding a world that was learning how to handle its own rapid growth. He became a bridge between old values and new possibilities, offering a steady hand as humanity navigated a changing landscape. Clark Kent also encountered stories that reflected the spirit of the time. He wrote about families who embraced new technologies, about neighborhoods adjusting to modern city life, and about communities working together to preserve their traditions while welcoming change. His writing maintained a tone of gentle understanding. He reminded readers that progress did not have to be frightening if approached with compassion and cooperation. As society changed, Superman began encountering more individuals who sought to use technology for personal gain. Some were brilliant inventors who lost sight of ethics in their pursuit of achievement. Others were opportunists who saw in technology a way to manipulate or control others. In every case, Superman approached them not with anger, but with disappointment and patience. He understood that fear of being left behind sometimes drove people into misguided actions. Instead of punishing them harshly, he encouraged them to find redemption through their own choices. One scientist developed a suit capable of creating temporary clones. He intended to use it to improve efficiency in manufacturing, but a malfunction caused unstable energy echoes that threatened to consume the entire building. Superman calmly disabled the suit and reassured the shaken scientist that mistakes were part of innovation. He encouraged the man to continue his work with greater caution. Such interactions showed that Superman's heroism was not defined by battle alone, but by the grace he extended to those who faltered. Supergirl continued to grow in her abilities and her understanding of Earth. Kara explored the world eagerly, visiting places Superman rarely had time to reach. She helped farmers repair damaged barns, assisted rescue crews during natural disasters, and comforted children who felt scared during storms. She learned to appreciate Earth's diversity, from its landscapes to its cultures. Kara and Superman often met in the Fortress of Solitude to share stories from their respective journeys. These conversations deepened their bond and allowed Superman to see Earth through her eyes. Meanwhile, new forms of communication spread across the globe. Televisions brought moving images of the world into living rooms. News broadcasts displayed reports of Superman rescue missions, capturing still shots of him lifting debris or guiding crowds to safety. These images became part of the collective consciousness, bringing comfort and reassurance to people who might never see Superman in person. With each passing year, Superman became more than a hero. He became a symbol of stability during uncertain times, a reminder that strength could be paired with humility, a model of grace under pressure. His gentle presence set the tone for a world discovering its modern identity. As the Silver Age of comics and culture blossomed, Superman found himself at the center of a myth that continued to deepen softly with every passing day. The deepening Silver Age, expanding ideals, and the gentle evolution of a legend. As the 1960s moved closer to their peak, the world found itself standing at a crossroads between tradition and innovation. The cultural rhythm of daily life was evolving. Television programs grew bolder, musicians experimented with new sounds, and writers explored imaginative concepts that pushed the boundaries of accepted thought. In this era of curiosity and transformation, Superman continued his quiet watch over Metropolis, adapting to the shifting expectations of the world he sought to protect. The city itself had changed noticeably. New bridges stretched across the river, connecting neighborhoods that once felt distant from the heart of the metropolis. Parks were renovated, filled with families enjoying peaceful afternoons beneath swaying trees. Cafes and bookstores thrived, becoming gathering places for artists, thinkers, and young people eager to discuss ideas that were slowly reshaping society. Through all of this, Superman felt a gentle pride in humanity's capacity for growth. Clark Kent observed these cultural movements closely through his work at the Daily Planet. He covered stories about new art exhibitions, technological breakthroughs, and changing social values. The newsroom buzzed with constant excitement. Lois Lane darted from event to event, bringing back sharp quotes and vivid descriptions. Perry White seemed louder than ever as he navigated the endless flow of stories. Jimmy Olsen snapped photographs of everything from scientific demonstrations to community celebrations. Clark, with his soft voice and thoughtful presence, fit seamlessly into this ever-changing environment. While Clark wrote about cultural transformation, Superman encountered it in more dynamic ways. One evening, as he flew over the city, he noticed a group of students gathered on a rooftop near a university. They were releasing lanterns into the sky, each glowing softly like a small star drifting upward. Curious, Superman descended quietly to watch. The students, surprised but delighted, invited him to make a wish before sending his own lantern into the air. Superman smiled gently and accepted the lantern, closing his eyes for a moment as he held it. As it rose, floating into the deepening twilight, he found himself reflecting on his place in this rapidly expanding world. Even a protector could find peace in moments like these, surrounded by young hearts full of hope. Superman also witnessed the rise of scientific wonder during this time. Laboratories grew more advanced, and researchers pushed deeper into the mysteries of energy, matter, and space. In one instance, a group of physicists conducted an experiment involving a prototype teleportation device. The apparatus glowed with a blue aura, its power fluctuating with unpredictable intensity. As the experiment escalated beyond control, the machine tore open a narrow tear in space, creating a vortex that threatened to pull the entire room into an unstable dimensional rift. Superman arrived in the lab with calm precision. He steadied the machine, absorbing stray bursts of energy with his body and shutting it down before the tear could grow. When the scientists stared at him in stunned silence, he spoke gently, reminding them that scientific progress carried responsibility as well as wonder. These events reinforced Superman's understanding that humanity was stepping into a new age, one filled with questions and challenges that required both intellect and wisdom. He believed deeply in human potential and supported efforts to explore the unknown, but he continued to guide these efforts with soft caution, ensuring that progress did not spiral into danger. During these years, Superman refined his abilities further. He developed greater control over his strength, learning to perform delicate operations that normal humans could never attempt. He used his heat vision with the precision of a craftsman, mending damaged circuits or melting twisted metal to repair collapsed structures. He learned to modulate his super breath, using gentle gusts to cool overheated machinery or guide drifting smoke away from fire crews. These skills reflected not only physical power, but deep emotional control. Superman never allowed his abilities to overshadow his compassion. The concept of alternate universes continued to intrigue him. On rare occasions, cosmic phenomena pushed Superman into brief contact with parallel worlds. He encountered versions of cities that looked like reflections in a distorted mirror. Sometimes he met individuals who resembled familiar faces but carried different histories. These experiences left him contemplative. They reminded him that the universe was far larger than he had ever imagined. Yet each time he returned home, he felt reassured. Earth remained the world he loved deeply, the world that shaped his identity. Superman's bond with Supergirl strengthened during this era. Kara embraced her role as a beacon of hope alongside him. She trained diligently, mastering the full range of her abilities. She learned to respond to emergencies with the same calm precision as Superman. Kara admired Clark's grace and patience, often seeking his counsel. In return, Superman admired her passion, resilience, and bright spirit. They spent many evenings together in the Fortress of Solitude, sharing stories about Krypton and dreaming of the future. Kara brought memories of their homeworld to life with her vibrant descriptions. She remembered the soft glow of crystalline architecture, the melodic tones of Kryptonian music, and the way the red sun bathed the landscape in warm hues. These memories filled Superman with a sense of connection he had never experienced before. While Supergirl grew into her own role, Superman continued to serve as Earth's cornerstone of stability. He remained involved in the daily lives of people who needed help. He rescued stranded hikers at mountaintops. He calmed crowds during panicked storms. He helped repair power lines after lightning strikes. Each action, no matter how small, carried immense meaning for those he assisted. They saw him not as a distant figure, but as a caring guardian who understood their fear and offered comfort without judgment. As cultural values shifted, Superman found himself facing dilemmas that required profound ethical thought. Some problems could not be solved with strength. They required understanding. In one memorable situation, Superman discovered a man who had built a device capable of influencing the emotions of others. The man felt overlooked by society and sought to force people to recognize his work. Superman confronted him not with anger, but with empathy. He listened to the man's frustrations and reminded him that true respect could never be coerced. In the end, the man surrendered, realizing that the recognition he sought would only come through sincerity. The Silver Age also introduced moments of quiet introspection for Superman. On one peaceful night, he flew above the ocean, letting the cool breeze wash across his face. Below him, waves shimmered gently beneath the moonlight. The vastness of the sea reminded him of the space he had crossed as an infant, drifting toward a world he was destined to protect. In that moment, he felt gratitude for both worlds. Krypton had given him life, but Earth had given him purpose. Superman's dedication to protecting humanity did not waver. He saw the challenges the world faced and responded with patience, humility, and unwavering compassion. His influence extended beyond physical rescues. He inspired people to act with kindness toward one another. He encouraged leaders to make decisions that promoted unity. He reminded children that strength came from doing what was right, even when it was difficult. As this era drew closer to its conclusion, Superman stood as a symbol of everything humanity aspired to be. He embodied courage without violence, power without arrogance, and hope without conditions. The Silver Age had matured around him, opening doors to new ideas, new conflicts, and new possibilities. Through it all, Superman remained a steady presence. The soft maturity of the Silver Age and the growing depth of Superman's legacy. As the 1960s progressed toward their later years, the world found itself caught in a swirl of rapid cultural movement. Ideas flowed freely, young voices spoke with newfound boldness, and society wrestled with questions of identity, justice, and meaning. Through these complex transitions, Superman watched with the patience of someone who understood both the fragility and the resilience of humanity. He remained a calm presence, guiding without interfering, protecting without overshadowing, and listening with a compassion that reached beyond physical power. Metropolis mirrored the changes unfolding nationwide. Its streets became stages for peaceful demonstrations, artistic gatherings, and community efforts that sought to uplift those who felt left behind. Clark Kent walked among these shifting crowds with quiet attentiveness. As a journalist, he spoke to people from all walks of life, listening to their worries, their hopes, and their dreams. Clark's articles began carrying a depth that reflected his deepening understanding of humanity's evolving heart. His gentle writing provided comfort during a time when emotions were strong and the future felt uncertain. Superman viewed these shifts from above, drifting calmly through the sky as the city changed beneath him. He saw students standing together for causes they believed in. He saw families adapting to new ways of living. He saw individuals struggling to understand their purpose in a world that seemed to move faster every day. He never judged these feelings. Instead, he embraced them as part of humanity's journey. Strength, he understood, did not always come from physical acts. Sometimes it emerged from courage in the face of emotional or societal challenges. During these years, Superman encountered villains whose motivations reflected the complexities of the time. Some were no longer driven purely by greed or power. They were shaped by fear, anxiety about societal change, or misguided attempts to impose order on a world they believed was losing its way. Superman responded to these threats with empathy, recognizing that even misguided actions were often rooted in pain or confusion. He made every effort to resolve conflicts without harm, offering wisdom and kindness even to those who opposed him. In one instance, a brilliant engineer developed a machine capable of creating sound waves that could alter the emotional state of entire crowds. The engineer believed that society needed to be subdued, quieted, and directed through controlled emotion. When the device overloaded during a demonstration, the resulting wave caused panic rather than calm. Superman moved into action quickly, using his speed to neutralize the device before it could cause widespread harm. Afterward, he sat with the distraught engineer, who confessed that he simply wanted a way to restore order in a world that felt chaotic. Superman spoke softly, explaining that true peace required understanding, not force. The engineer wept with relief as authorities arrived quietly to take him into care. Moments like these revealed the depth of Superman's compassion more clearly than any display of strength ever could. Superman's connection to the Fortress of Solitude also deepened during this era. He spent more time in its quiet chambers, thinking about the shifting world and his place within it. The fortress reflected both the past and the future. Its Kryptonian structures shimmered with memories of his lost homeworld, while its Earth-inspired artifacts reminded him of the beauty of the planet he served. Superman often walked through its corridors with his cape trailing gently behind him, listening to the faint hum of crystalline machinery. In those moments, he found peace. The fortress became both a sanctuary and a place of meditation, a reminder of how far he had come and how much he cherished the world around him. Supergirl visited the fortress often, bringing with her a brightness that filled the silent halls with warmth. Kara spoke about her latest rescues, her experiences with new friends, and her ongoing efforts to understand Earth's customs. Superman listened to her with the affection of an older brother. He admired her passion for her work and her eagerness to learn. Kara, in turn, admired Superman's calm leadership and his ability to inspire hope simply through his presence. Together, they represented the legacy of Krypton and the promise of Earth. The Daily Planet continued to serve as a grounding force in Clark's life. Its busy halls reminded him of the importance of truth in a world full of changing narratives. Lois Lane remained relentless in her pursuit of justice. Her stories tackled issues of inequality, corruption, and human resilience. Perry White guided the newsroom with an unshakable belief in integrity. Jimmy Olsen captured photographs that revealed the beauty and complexity of the city. Clark took comfort in these steady rhythms. They reminded him that even as the world changed, the pursuit of truth remained constant. Superman's influence extended far beyond Metropolis. His stories inspired people in distant towns and large cities alike. Children hung posters of him on their bedroom walls. Parents referenced his values when teaching lessons of kindness and responsibility. Teachers used his stories to encourage acts of courage among students. Superman became more than a hero. He became a cultural symbol of hope and possibility. His presence reassured people during moments of fear, reminding them that even in uncertain times, goodness could prevail. During one evening patrol, Superman flew above the ocean and watched the moon reflect on the water. The surface shimmered like a sheet of silver, undisturbed except for the soft ripples created by a passing breeze. Superman hovered above the scene, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. He listened to the gentle rhythm of the waves and thought about the countless lives he had encountered. He reflected on the gratitude he had seen, the bravery of ordinary people, and the resilience of a world that refused to give up hope. These quiet reflections strengthened his resolve. They reminded him that his mission was not simply to fight danger, but to protect the fragile sense of peace that allowed humanity to dream. As the Silver Age drew closer to its twilight, Superman stood at the threshold of new challenges and new stories. The world was preparing for another shift, one that would bring deeper emotions, more complex villains, and bigger existential questions. Yet Superman remained steady. His values did not change. His compassion did not waver. He continued to believe in the potential for goodness in every person he met. With the Silver Age gently coming to a close, Superman prepared to step into the next great era of his life, carrying with him the lessons of two worlds, the bonds of family, and the unwavering commitment to stand with humanity through every triumph and every trial. The soft dawn of a new era. As the 1970s approached, a gentle shift settled over Metropolis and the world beyond it. People were becoming more introspective, questioning their roles in society, their relationships, and their purpose in an increasingly complex world. Superman watched this transformation with quiet understanding. Throughout his life, he had seen humanity evolve through cycles of optimism, conflict, recovery, and renewal. This new era carried a tone of thoughtful reflection, and Superman adapted to its rhythm with the same grace he brought to every chapter of his long journey. Metropolis itself seemed to slow down, even amid constant motion. The city lights still sparkled at night, and traffic still filled the avenues during busy mornings. Yet there was a softness in the way people spoke to one another. Neighbors lingered longer in conversation. Families spent more evenings sharing meals. Communities organized gatherings not just for entertainment, but for connection. Clark Kent felt this shift as he walked through the streets, notebook in hand. He sensed that people wanted stories that helped them understand the world rather than simply escape it. he responded with writing that captured quiet moments of humanity, stories that highlighted resilience in the smaller corners of life. Superman noticed the change from above as well. When he glided silently through the evening sky, he saw apartment windows glowing warmly with families sharing laughter. He saw couples strolling through parks under soft lamplight, their hands loosely intertwined. He saw artists painting on rooftops, their canvases reflecting the colors of the setting sun. These scenes reminded him of the peaceful nights he spent on the Kent farm, listening to the distant hum of crickets beneath the Kansas stars. Even though Metropolis was vastly different from Smallville, the heart behind these moments felt the same. During this era, Superman confronted challenges that reflected the growing emotional complexity of the world. People were struggling not only with physical dangers, but with inner turmoil. In one instance, Superman discovered a man standing on the ledge of a tall building. The man was overwhelmed by pressures he felt he could not endure. Superman did not swoop in dramatically. Instead, he floated gently beside the man and spoke with a soft voice. He listened to the man's fears, acknowledging his pain without minimizing it. Eventually, the man stepped back into safety, comforted by the presence of someone who truly heard him. Superman never mentioned the event publicly. To him, the moment was private and sacred, a reminder that emotional rescue required tenderness rather than force. Elsewhere in his life, the Fortress of Solitude took on deeper meaning. Superman spent more time there in quiet meditation, reflecting on who he was as Clark Kent and as Kal-El. He wandered through the crystalline halls, pausing to gaze upon holographic images of Krypton, projected in warm light. These visions felt more precious as the years passed. The red deserts, the gleaming towers, the flowing rivers beneath alien skies, they reminded him of the world that shaped his origins. Yet Earth remained the world that shaped his heart. Supergirl continued to flourish during this period, growing into a confident protector with her own distinct identity. She rescued lost hikers, assisted firefighters during forest emergencies, and comforted children during difficult times. When she visited the fortress, she brought stories of her adventures and the people she helped. Superman listened with gentle pride, knowing that she carried the best of Krypton into the future. Their conversations often drifted into reflections about purpose and legacy, topics that Superman found himself contemplating more frequently as the decades advanced. Meanwhile, Clark Kent observed the evolution of the Daily Planet. Some of the faces he had worked beside for years began to move on, pursuing different paths as life carried them into new chapters. New reporters joined the staff, bringing fresh ideas and modern approaches to journalism. While the changes tugged at Clark's heart with a quiet ache, he welcomed the new energy they brought. He mentored younger reporters with the same patience the Kents had once shown him. He taught them that truth mattered not because it was dramatic, but because it connected people and nurtured understanding. Not all developments during this time were peaceful. Lex Luthor grew more cunning, shifting from loud displays of antagonism to subtle, calculated strategies. His intellect sharpened, his influence widened, and his ambitions darkened. Rather than rely on brute scientific experiments, he began embedding himself within the political and corporate frameworks of Metropolis. He used wealth and charisma to manipulate public perception, building his empire quietly behind closed doors. Superman saw these changes but approached them with calm vigilance. He understood that Luthor's greatest threat was not in his inventions, but in the ideas he attempted to seed into society. Ideas of superiority, control, and distrust. Superman responded with hope rather than hostility. He made efforts to uplift communities that Luthor sought to influence. He showed compassion in places where Luthor spread cynicism. He offered unity where Luthor sowed division. Their conflict became less a battle of fists and more a battle of philosophies. Superman believed in empowerment through kindness. Luthor believed in dominance through fear. Yet, even in this ideological struggle, Superman carried himself with unwavering serenity. As the world entered the final stretch of this era, Superman felt a soft maturity settling over his life. He understood that strength did not lie in resisting change, but in adapting with grace. The world was evolving, and so was he. His story had begun as a tale of an alien infant drifting through space. It had grown into a narrative of a boy raised with love on a Kansas farm. It had expanded into the legend of a hero who balanced two identities while protecting the world with humility and hope. Now it became a meditation on purpose, legacy, and the quiet beauty found in guiding rather than leading. As the sun rose gently over Metropolis on another quiet morning, Superman stood atop a skyscraper and watched the world awaken. The breeze whispered against his cape. The city stretched beneath him like a living tapestry, full of movement and possibility. He breathed in the calm air and felt grateful for all he had experienced. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew he would face them with steadiness, compassion, and an unyielding belief in the goodness of humanity. The Bronze Age of reflection, identity, and quiet trials. As the 1970s settled more firmly into place, Superman began to feel the world around him shift in deeper, more introspective ways. In the years prior, he had witnessed society's move toward creativity, exploration, and open imagination. But now, a new tone emerged, one shaped by questions that people carried quietly in their hearts. Families wondered about their futures. Communities questioned their traditions. Nations reflected on the cost of progress. These quiet uncertainties drifted through the air of Metropolis like invisible currents, and Superman felt them as clearly as he felt the wind brushing against his cape. Clark Kent noticed these changes most clearly in the faces of the people he interviewed. When he visited city halls, he saw officials speaking with more care, trying to navigate complex decisions that affected thousands. When he visited schools, he watched teachers guide students through discussions about responsibility and empathy. In community centers, Clark listened to residents share their worries about rapid technological changes, shifting job markets, and the fast pace of modern life. His articles during this era took on a calm, guiding tone. He wrote not to deliver quick answers, but to give people space to think, to breathe, and to understand themselves. Superman, in his role as protector, approached the world with the same sense of patience. He felt that humanity was stepping into a stage of emotional maturity, and he wanted to support that growth without overwhelming it. His rescues became more measured, more deliberate. Rather than swooping in dramatically, he arrived quietly, grounding chaotic moments with his steady presence. One evening, he found himself responding to a situation deep within a coal mining town miles away from Metropolis. A section of the underground tunnels had collapsed, trapping a group of miners in total darkness. When Superman arrived, he descended into the mine with slow, careful steps, using his heat vision to create soft light rather than harsh beams. He spoke gently to the trapped workers, reassuring them as he lifted fallen beams and cleared pathways. When they finally reached the surface, the miners embraced one another with trembling relief. Superman stepped back, watching quietly as the town gathered around their returning loved ones. He felt grateful to witness such resilience, to see firsthand the strength that ordinary people carried. During this same period, Superman began to reflect on his dual identity more deeply. Clark Kent had always been his anchor, the part of him that felt most connected to humanity. Clark could sit at a diner and listen to someone share a personal story. Clark could help a coworker through a difficult day. Clark could observe the world through human eyes, feeling its joys and its sorrows in ways that Superman never could. But as his responsibilities grew more complex, he sometimes found himself wondering if the world needed Superman more than it needed Clark. These thoughts weighed on him during quiet nights. He often returned to the Fortress of Solitude, seeking clarity. There, surrounded by crystalline towers and holographic echoes of Krypton, he allowed himself to be vulnerable. He walked slowly through chambers that shimmered with memories, asking questions aloud to the silent room. Was he doing enough? Was he guiding humanity in the right direction? Was he balancing his role as a protector with his role as a man of Earth? These were not doubts born from weakness, but reflections born from love. Superman cared about humanity too deeply to ignore these questions. His bond with Supergirl provided comfort during these introspective years. Kara continued to flourish, growing stronger not only in her abilities, but in her empathy. She understood the emotional complexities of her cousin better than anyone, sensing the burdens he carried even when he remained silent. On many evenings, the two of them floated above the snowy plains outside the fortress, talking softly as the auroras danced across the polar sky. Kara encouraged him gently, reminding him that he did not need to bear the weight of the world alone. Her companionship reminded Superman that even guardians needed support. Meanwhile, Metropolis continued to evolve. The skyline expanded as architects experimented with new shapes and materials. Public transportation systems grew more advanced, connecting distant neighborhoods more seamlessly. Communities launched cultural festivals celebrating diversity and storytelling. But even in the midst of progress, the city faced moments of unease. Economic shifts affected families. Tension simmered in neighborhoods undergoing rapid change. Superman responded by strengthening his presence in quieter ways. He helped rebuild damaged homes. He supported emergency crews during difficult weather. He guided lost children to safety. These actions reinforced a sense of stability during uncertain times. Lex Luthor, meanwhile, continued his transition into a more sophisticated and dangerous figure. He recognized that brute force could not defeat Superman. Instead, he developed strategies that targeted public opinion and social systems. Luthor built a vast corporate empire, slipping into political networks and influencing public policy. He presented himself as a visionary leader, a genius who understood the future better than anyone else. But beneath this polished exterior, Luthor simmered with the same envy and resentment that had defined his earlier years. He saw Superman as a barrier to his own greatness, a living reminder that power was not meant to be controlled by a single human mind. Superman countered Luthor's rise, not with aggression, but with unwavering integrity. He exposed corruption quietly when he found it. He encouraged transparency in government and business through Clark's reporting. He uplifted communities that Luthor sought to manipulate. Their conflict was no longer about grand battles. It became a philosophical duel that shaped the identity of Metropolis. Luthor represented control through fear. Superman represented hope through compassion. As the decade advanced, Superman encountered cosmic threats that deepened his understanding of the universe. One such encounter involved a massive celestial anomaly drifting silently through the outer solar system. It emitted waves of energy that caused disturbances on Earth, subtle at first but threatening to intensify. Superman flew beyond the atmosphere into the cold expanse of space, approaching the anomaly with caution. Its structure defied easy description. It shimmered with shifting colors, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Superman listened closely to the hum of its energy, sensing that its presence was not malicious, merely lost. Using his heat vision, he sent out gentle pulses that nudged the anomaly onto a safer trajectory. When it drifted away, the Earth grew calm once again. Moments like these expanded Superman's perspective. He realized that Earth was only one part of a vast and interconnected universe, filled with wonders and mysteries that reached far beyond human understanding. Yet his love for Earth never wavered. The sight of home, the sound of city traffic, the warmth of sunlight on Metropolis streets, all of it remained precious to him. No matter where he traveled, he always returned with gratitude for the world that raised him. Toward the end of this era, Superman found himself reflecting more deeply on legacy. Not legacy in the sense of monuments or records, but legacy in the sense of influence. What values was he passing on to the next generation of heroes? What lessons would endure long after he was gone? He realized that his true legacy was not his strength, but his compassion. Every rescue, every gentle word, every moment of kindness became a thread in a tapestry that stretched across decades. This realization brought him peace. As the sun set over Metropolis one quiet evening, Superman hovered above the skyline and watched the city glow with thousands of warm lights. He sensed the pulse of life below the laughter, the arguments, the hopes, the fears. It reminded him of why he chose to protect humanity in the first place. Not because he felt obligated, but because he felt connected. He believed in people. He believed in their capacity to grow, to learn, and to love. It was this belief, above all else, that guided him into the final stretch of this era. The soft rise of the Bronze Age and the deepening of Superman's humanity. As the 1970s continued moving forward, a gentle sense of introspection shaped the world around Superman. The bright optimism of earlier decades had softened into a mature awareness of reality. People were learning to carry both hope and uncertainty at the same time. Cities were expanding, technology was advancing, but hearts were wrestling with deeper questions. Superman felt this shift like a quiet pulse beneath the surface of life. It guided the way he interacted with humanity during this era, encouraging him to respond with even more sensitivity, patience, and emotional understanding. Clark Kent found that the stories people wished to tell were changing. Instead of seeking fast headlines, many wished to discuss their fears about the future. They wondered how communities could hold on to unity as the world became more complex. Clark wrote with compassion, choosing words that soothed rather than startled. He highlighted the strength of teachers who supported children during difficult times, of neighbors who shared resources when someone fell on hard days, and of families who adapted with remarkable resilience to economic or cultural shifts. His writing became a comforting presence in the Daily Planet, like a steady lantern glowing in the middle of a storm. Superman encountered these emotional transitions from another angle. He continued to respond to emergencies, but he increasingly found himself addressing situations shaped by internal struggle rather than physical danger. One night, he discovered a man sitting at a quiet bus stop long after the last bus had come and gone. The man was exhausted, not from running or danger, but from feeling overwhelmed by the pressures of life. Superman sat beside him without a word. Eventually, the man opened up, speaking about the weight he carried. Superman listened with gentle focus, offering quiet reassurances. He did not try to solve every problem. He simply helped the man feel seen. When the man finally stood and walked home with renewed determination, Superman lifted silently into the sky, grateful to have provided comfort in a moment of vulnerability. During this era, Superman became increasingly aware of how his presence influenced others. He noticed that children viewed him not only as a hero, but as a symbol of stability. When they saw him in the sky, their faces lit with a sense of reassurance. Parents pointed to him during moments of uncertainty, telling their children that everything would be all right. These small interactions shaped Superman's sense of responsibility in ways that went far beyond lifting heavy objects or stopping disasters. He realized that being a source of hope meant carrying himself with gentleness at all times, even when faced with hostility. Lex Luthor sensed this emotional shift as well. His strategies grew more intricate, woven into the political and economic strands of Metropolis. Luthor presented himself as a benevolent leader, offering solutions to problems that seemed too large for ordinary citizens to face alone. But beneath his polished speeches lay intentions that echoed his old resentment toward Superman. He believed that humanity should rely on human genius, not alien intervention. He believed that he alone had the right to shape the future. Superman watched Luthor's growing influence with steady vigilance. He did not confront Luthor with aggression, but with transparency, using Clark's writing to reveal truths when deception threatened to harm innocent people. Yet even as Superman navigated these external conflicts, he faced internal ones that required profound reflection. His powers had grown steadily stronger over the years, expanding to levels that sometimes startled even him. He could hear distant whispers carried across oceans. He could see microscopic details within the structure of stone. He could move with a speed that outpaced thunder. These abilities brought responsibility, but also questions. How could he remain grounded when his senses stretched farther than any human mind was designed to perceive? How could he relate to human emotions when he could lift mountains without strain? To answer these questions, Superman returned to the Fortress of Solitude more frequently. Within its silent chambers, he stood before Kryptonian artifacts that glowed softly in the dim light. He listened to gentle holographic recordings left behind by Jor-El. He studied the architecture that mirrored the lost beauty of Krypton. As he walked along the crystalline floors, the sound of his footsteps echoed in a calming rhythm. These visits reminded him that he carried two worlds within him: Earth shaped his heart. Krypton shaped his spirit. The balance between the two created the man he had become. Superman also reflected on the passage of time. Years had flowed gently into one another, each filled with countless rescues, conversations, and moments of quiet observation. He realized that while humanity aged visibly, he did not show those same signs. He looked the same as he had decades earlier. This realization brought with it a sense of melancholy. He knew that some friendships would one day fade. Some colleagues at the Daily Planet would retire. Some people he had saved might grow older while he remained unchanged. This thought did not diminish his joy for their lives. Instead, it deepened his appreciation for every moment he shared with them. One particularly reflective evening, Superman stood atop a building and watched the lights of Metropolis flicker like fireflies. He listened to the distant sounds of music drifting from open windows. He watched families gather around dinner tables, sharing stories about their day. He floated above neighborhoods where children played under street lamps, their laughter rising into the night. In these observations, Superman found the anchor he had been searching for. He realized that legacy was not measured through time, but through the kindness he offered in every second. If he could help people build stronger lives, then his presence would remain meaningful, even as the decades passed. Supergirl continued to serve as a source of grounding during this era. Kara was growing, not only in skill, but also in wisdom. She handled emergencies with a blend of strength and compassion that mirrored Superman's own values. She visited schools, spoke with young students, and encouraged them to believe in themselves. Her presence reminded Superman that the future was bright and that hope would continue to flourish long after he stepped away from the spotlight. Throughout the decade, Superman faced threats that challenged him in subtle new ways. Some villains sought to manipulate collective emotions through technology or illusion. Others attempted to exploit societal anxieties for personal gain. But Superman fought these challenges with the same steady resolve he always carried. He understood that fear was powerful, but he believed even more firmly in the strength of hope. His gentle approach became a guiding light in a world trying to rediscover its balance. As the Bronze Age moved toward its next transformation, Superman felt a sense of calm anticipation. The world was preparing for new stories, deeper complexities, and greater emotional depth. And through every shift, Superman remained as he always had been, a symbol of quiet strength, an embodiment of compassion, and a guardian who believed wholeheartedly in the potential of the human spirit. A world in transition and the quiet burdens of a timeless hero. As the 1970s transitioned into their later years, the world grew more contemplative, more aware of the shadows that lingered at the edges of progress. Metropolis remained a dazzling center of innovation and culture, but beneath its bright lights lay a quiet undercurrent of questions that people carried within themselves. Superman felt these emotional ripples with increasing clarity, sensing the subtle anxieties and gentle hopes that spread through the city like shifting tides. He knew instinctively that this era called for more than strength. It called for presence. It called for empathy. Clark Kent found himself writing with a deeper focus on human stories. He listened closely to community leaders who were working to bridge gaps between generations. He interviewed families who struggled with economic shifts, yet remained determined to move forward together. He wrote about teachers finding new ways to reach students in changing times, about neighbors forming bonds across cultural divides, and about the quiet strength found in small acts of kindness. His articles provided comfort, offering readers the reassurance that resilience lived within them even when the world felt uncertain. Superman, meanwhile, encountered challenges that reflected the maturing emotions of society. In earlier decades, conflicts often came from external forces or accidental dangers. But now, the threats he faced were increasingly shaped by inner turmoil. One evening, he found a young man standing silently on a bridge as the wind whipped around him. The man was overwhelmed by fear about his future. Superman approached with gentle steps, landing softly beside him so as not to startle him. He spoke in a calm, steady tone, acknowledging the man's fears without dismissing them. He reminded the young man that the future was wide and full of possibility, that strength could be found in seeking help and in believing that life could change for the better. After a long conversation, the young man stepped back from the edge, relieved to have been heard. Superman never spoke of the encounter again. It was not an act of heroism. It was an act of humanity. These personal moments shaped Superman as much as any large-scale threat. He realized that emotional rescue required sensitivity that no physical strength could replace. It required listening, patience, and understanding. Those qualities became central to the way he moved through this evolving world. Lex Luthor also sensed the cultural shift and sought to adapt. His strategies became more subtle, more psychological. He began shaping narratives rather than machines, building influence through corporate expansion and political alliances. Luthor understood that the world was becoming more sensitive to fear and uncertainty. He exploited this, whispering that stability required strong leadership, that humanity needed direction, that he alone had the vision required to guide the future. His carefully crafted image spread through Metropolis like a polished mask that hid deeper intentions. Superman responded not with aggression, but with transparency. When Luthor manipulated public opinion, Superman encouraged truth through Clark's journalism. When Luthor tried to influence political structures, Superman strengthened communities through kindness and visible presence. Their rivalry became a symbolic struggle of two philosophies: Luthor's pursuit of control through intellect and fear, and Superman's belief in empowerment through compassion and hope. The conflict between them took on a new depth, not defined by physical confrontations, but by the ideas they embodied. During this era, Superman faced cosmic challenges that pushed him to reflect even more deeply on his identity. One such challenge came in the form of a silent, drifting anomaly that appeared near one of Earth's magnetic poles. Its shimmering surface pulsed gently with energy that affected global weather patterns. Storms grew stronger, winds shifted unpredictably, and temperature fluctuations spread across continents. Superman approached the anomaly with cautious curiosity. He could sense that it was not alive in a traditional sense, yet it carried a strange awareness. He hovered in front of it and reached out with a gentle touch, feeling its energy flow into his hand. Through delicate adjustments, Superman guided the anomaly away from Earth, nudging it into a safer path. As he watched it drift into the void, he felt a quiet sadness. The anomaly reminded him that the universe was filled with phenomena that could appear dangerous without intending harm. It reinforced his belief that not every threat needed to be met with force. Often, understanding was the key. Meanwhile, the Fortress of Solitude continued to evolve. Superman spent more time there, expanding its chambers with new knowledge gathered from his experiences. He added crystalline archives that stored memories of the people he had helped, the places he had visited, and the lessons he had learned. He kept artifacts from Earth alongside the holographic remnants of Krypton, creating a space that symbolized the harmony between his two worlds. When he walked through the fortress, he felt connected not only to his past, but to the future he hoped to help build. Superman also began reflecting more deeply on the passage of time. He remained physically unchanged, his face showing no signs of age. Meanwhile, friends at the Daily Planet began to experience the natural flow of life. Some grew older and moved into quieter roles. Others left the newspaper entirely to pursue new careers or to spend more time with family. Perry White developed gentle signs of age, his gruff voice occasionally shifting into softer tones during late evenings at the office. Lois Lane remained passionate and focused, but even she carried a deeper awareness of time and responsibility. Clark cherished these moments. He understood that the beauty of human life lay in its fragility, in the way people grew and changed. He found comfort in being part of their journeys, even though his own path extended far beyond any human lifespan. He learned to embrace the bittersweet nature of connection, knowing that the value of relationships was not diminished by their impermanence. Supergirl continued to be a source of strength and light. Kara grew more confident in her role as a hero, embracing the emotional complexities of protecting Earth. She spoke often about the kindness she witnessed during her travels, sharing stories of families who supported one another during hardship, of communities that united during crises, and of small gestures that carried great meaning. Her optimism reminded Superman of the potential he saw in humanity every day. As the Bronze Age matured, Superman faced villains whose motives reflected the deeper questions of the time. Some challenged him not physically, but ideologically, questioning whether a single powerful figure should have so much influence. Others sought to manipulate public emotion, using fear or disillusionment to gain control. Superman responded with humility, acknowledging that trust had to be earned continually. He made sure that every action he took was guided by integrity rather than authority. In one conflict, a brilliant but troubled inventor created a device capable of amplifying human fear. The machine turned peaceful crowds into frightened mobs within seconds. Superman approached the situation slowly, using his presence to ground the chaos. He dismantled the device carefully, ensuring no one was harmed, and then offered the inventor a chance to seek help rather than incarceration. The moment revealed his belief that redemption was possible, even for those who had fallen deeply into despair. Toward the close of this era, Superman began visiting schools and community centers more often. He wanted to connect with younger generations directly, to remind them that kindness, curiosity, and courage mattered just as much as strength. When he spoke to children, he did not address them as a distant hero. He knelt to their level and spoke softly, sharing stories of hope rather than triumph. He reminded them that doing the right thing did not require extraordinary abilities, only extraordinary heart. As the decade edged toward its conclusion, Superman stood at the dawn of a new emotional landscape. the world was preparing for more complex stories, deeper conflicts, and moments that would push even his immense resolve. Yet he faced the future with calm assurance. The lessons he had learned across decades had shaped him into a guardian not defined by power, but by compassion. He carried within him the strength of two worlds and the hopes of countless people. And as the sun dipped behind the Metropolis skyline on another quiet evening, Superman hovered above the city he loved, listening to the soft heartbeat of its life. He breathed in the calm air, ready for the next chapter of his long journey. The dawn of modern complexity and the quiet weight of immortality. As the 1970s eased into their final years and the early 1980s approached, the world underwent another shift, subtle yet profound. The culture that once sought introspection now began wrestling with questions about identity, justice, and the fragile balance between power and accountability. Technology accelerated rapidly. Political landscapes changed. Communities struggled to adapt. Metropolis reflected all of this movement, growing both brighter and more burdened at the same time. And through it all, Superman remained a calm and steady presence, watching humanity evolve with the same gentle devotion he had carried for decades. Clark Kent sensed these changes in the stories people wished to share. He noticed that ordinary citizens were beginning to voice deeper concerns about fairness and responsibility in a world that seemed to grow more complicated every year. Parents worried about the future their children would inherit. Workers felt uneasy about technological advances that replaced old routines. Young people questioned traditional structures and sought meaning beyond material success. Clark wrote with a quiet understanding, capturing these emotions with care and offering space for his readers to reflect rather than react. In the newsroom of the Daily Planet, his writing became a grounding force during a time when many felt adrift. Superman felt these concerns from another angle. As he flew above the city, he sensed the tension that drifted through neighborhoods like an invisible mist. People longed for stability, yet feared change. They hoped for unity, yet struggled to find it. Superman responded by strengthening his commitment to quiet, everyday heroism. He spent more time assisting rescue workers, delivering supplies after storms, and helping communities rebuild after accidents. He focused on the subtle gestures that reminded people they were not alone. One night, a heavy thunderstorm swept across the eastern coast, flooding streets and leaving thousands without power. Superman moved across the city with patient determination, lifting stranded cars to higher ground, guiding rescue boats through rising waters, and checking on families trapped in upper floors of apartment buildings. As he carried an elderly couple through the storm, shielding them beneath his cape, he felt the quiet gratitude in their trembling hands. These moments reminded him that even the smallest act of protection could mean the world to someone in need. As his responsibilities deepened, so did the complexity of his inner life. Superman began to feel the weight of time in a different way. He noticed the lines that appeared slowly on the faces of his friends at the Daily Planet. He watched Perry White speak with a slightly softer tone, the fiery energy of youth giving way to a calm authority shaped by experience. Lois remained sharp and fearless, but even she carried a deeper wisdom now, a sense that she had lived through stories that shaped her permanently. But Clark remained unchanged. His face did not age, his posture did not shift, and his voice carried the same steady warmth it always had. This disparity brought him moments of sorrow. He loved the people around him deeply, and knowing that their lives would change while his remained constant weighed on his heart. He found himself lingering longer in conversations, savoring stories and laughter. He treasured small moments, like Lois excitedly bursting into the newsroom with a new lead, or Jimmy Olsen showing him a photograph he was proud of. These experiences taught him that the essence of life was not found in longevity, but in presence. Even if he remained unchanged physically, he could still cherish each moment as if it were finite. This era also brought new emotional dimensions to Superman's conflict with Lex Luthor. Luthor had grown into a figure of immense social influence, weaving himself into the fabric of Metropolis through business, philanthropy, and political maneuvering. Many citizens admired him, unaware of the quiet resentment that simmered beneath his polished surface. Luthor viewed Superman as an obstacle to human progress, convinced that relying on a hero from another world diminished humanity's potential. He believed that power belonged in the hands of human intellect, not alien compassion, and he sought to prove it through manipulation, misdirection, and carefully crafted rhetoric. Superman recognized this shift in Luthor's strategy. Their rivalry had become less about physical confrontation and more about perception. Luthor influenced minds, while Superman influenced hearts. Luthor sowed distrust subtly, planting seeds of doubt among those who feared dependence on a single figure. Superman responded with transparency and humility. When misinformation spread, Clark exposed it through careful journalism. When fear took hold, Superman countered it with steady reassurance. Their conflict became a quiet struggle for the soul of Metropolis. Superman also faced threats that challenged his understanding of existence itself. In one encounter, he encountered a cosmic traveler who arrived from a distant region of space where time moved differently. The traveler spoke in soft melodic tones that flowed like wind over glass. He revealed glimpses of civilizations that had risen and fallen across immense stretches of time. He spoke of cosmic storms that shaped galaxies and of planets that thrived for millions of years before fading into stardust. These revelations expanded Superman's understanding of his place in the universe. They reminded him that Earth was both fragile and extraordinary, a tiny beacon of life in an endless expanse. After the encounter, Superman returned to the Fortress of Solitude and spent hours walking through its silent halls. The recordings of Jor-El shimmered softly, offering guidance from a world long lost. Superman listened to his father's voice, letting the words settle into his mind like falling snow. He realized that even though he felt the weight of time differently from humans, he was still part of the cycles of growth and learning that shaped all living beings. His immortality was not a barrier. It was a responsibility, a promise to protect, to love, and to guide without dominating. Supergirl continued to be a radiant force during these years. Kara matured into a compassionate protector who balanced her Kryptonian strength with youthful empathy. She traveled widely, helping communities in remote regions where Superman's presence was less common. She returned to the fortress often to share stories of the people she met, the children she comforted, and the wisdom she learned. Her presence reminded Superman that hope carried forward, not only through him, but through every person who chose to act with courage. One evening, Superman visited a small town recovering from a factory accident. Buildings had been damaged and families were displaced. As he helped a group of volunteers clear debris, a young girl approached him with a handmade drawing. The picture showed Superman standing beside a family, with rays of light coming from his chest. The girl explained that her mother said Superman represented the idea that there was always someone who cared. As Superman looked down at the drawing, he felt a quiet warmth spread through him. The picture captured not his power, but his purpose. As the decade transitioned toward its close, Superman felt a new era forming on the horizon. The world was preparing for more emotionally complex stories, deeper moral questions, and challenges that would push the limits of his compassion. Yet he remained ready. His belief in humanity had only grown stronger. He understood that power meant nothing without heart, and that even the smallest act of kindness could ripple across generations. On a calm night, he hovered above the city, watching the lights shimmer beneath him. The world below was changing, but its heartbeat remained steady. Superman breathed in the cool night air, feeling the weight of eternity balanced with the beauty of the present moment. He carried both lightly, knowing that his journey was far from over. A modern age of reflection, cosmic understanding, and the quiet eternity of Superman. As the 1980s arrived, a delicate shift settled across Metropolis and the wider world. It was a shift that felt both familiar and entirely new. Society stood at the edge of rapid technological growth, yet carried with it a lingering sense of vulnerability. People questioned institutions with renewed intensity. They examined their histories, their communities, and their values with introspective honesty. Superman felt these emotions gently, like waves brushing against the edges of his consciousness. He knew that humanity was entering a period of transition that would test its emotional resilience as much as its physical one. Clark Kent watched these developments through the lens of journalism. He walked into the Daily Planet each morning, prepared not just to report on events, but to understand them. He spoke with citizens who felt uncertainty about the direction the world was moving in. He interviewed leaders who tried to reassure their communities despite their own quiet doubts. His articles during this era carried a tone of compassionate clarity. They helped readers navigate the delicate questions of identity and purpose that emerged as society embraced new technology and confronted old wounds. Superman experienced this era from the sky, where he could observe the planet with unbroken calm. When he soared above Metropolis, he saw construction sites where workers erected the beginnings of modern architecture. He saw computer labs filled with researchers eager to explore digital futures. He heard the hum of machines that would reshape the lives of millions. Yet he also sensed the anxious heartbeat beneath the surface. He saw families worried about changing job landscapes. He saw teenagers struggling with expectations placed upon them by a world growing more interconnected and competitive. He saw communities wrestling with the tension between tradition and change. Superman responded with steady reassurance. He did not swoop dramatically into the spotlight. Instead, he appeared quietly where people needed him most. He helped fix power grids after storms. He delivered supplies to rural towns affected by economic shifts. He visited neighborhoods facing uncertainty, offering silent support simply by being present. His calm presence gave people a sense of stability in the midst of rapid transformation. As the world moved toward modern complexity, Superman faced a crisis that tested not his strength, but his heart. There came a day when an immensely powerful entity descended from the outer reaches of space, drawn to Earth by an anomaly in the fabric of reality. This cosmic being possessed abilities far beyond what human science could explain. It threatened existence not out of malice, but out of confusion, its consciousness struggling to understand the nature of this vibrant and chaotic world. Superman confronted the being far above the atmosphere, where stars shimmered like distant crystals. He approached not with fists raised, but with compassion guiding each movement. He felt its confusion, sensed its fear. He spoke to it in a calm, steady tone, offering clarity through the emotions he projected. In that moment, Superman realized that even cosmic entities could feel lost, overwhelmed by forces beyond their understanding. Through patience and empathy, he guided the being away from Earth, helping it find a peaceful direction in the vastness of space. As it drifted off, the stars glittered with renewed calm. Superman remained still for a long moment, acknowledging the fragile balance that held the universe together. This encounter deepened his understanding of existence. He realized that vulnerability was not limited to humanity. All forms of life, from the smallest child in Metropolis to the most powerful cosmic being, carried moments of uncertainty. This realization stayed with him as he returned to Earth, settling gently atop a quiet skyscraper. The city glowed beneath him with its soft pattern of lights, each tiny illumination representing a person with dreams, fears, and hopes of their own. The Fortress of Solitude became an increasingly important sanctuary during this era. Superman walked through its crystalline chambers in the quiet hours of the night, pondering the growing complexity of the world. He activated recordings of Jor-El, listening to the soft, steady voice that spoke of destiny and balance. He studied visions of Krypton, absorbing the lessons of a world that had shaped him even though he barely remembered it. The fortress shimmered with timeless peace, allowing him to process the weight of the universe with gentle clarity. Supergirl continued her own evolution during this period, maturing into a protector whose compassion rivaled his own. She embraced the growing complexity of the world with a hopeful heart. She helped families adapt to rapid technological changes. She guided young students who felt overwhelmed by modern pressures. She traveled to distant regions to assist with crises that required her strength and empathy. Her presence reminded Superman that hope persisted across generations. Watching her grow filled him with soft pride, knowing that she represented the best of both Krypton and Earth. In the midst of these cosmic and emotional shifts, Superman faced threats that blurred the line between physical danger and philosophical challenge. Some villains sought to manipulate identity, using advanced technology to rewrite memories or alter perceptions. Others tried to exploit the uncertainty of the era by creating illusions of safety in exchange for control. Superman confronted these challenges with unwavering humility. He reminded people that true security came from inner strength, not from fear-driven promises. One such confrontation involved a scientist who created a device capable of generating alternate versions of reality based on human desires. The device projected visions of perfect worlds, tempting people to abandon their real lives in favor of fantasies. Superman intervened not by destroying the device, but by reminding people that imperfections did not diminish the beauty of existence. He spoke to them in a calm voice, inviting them to embrace the challenges that shaped their character. As the illusions faded, people returned to their real lives with renewed appreciation. During one quiet evening flight, Superman drifted above Metropolis and found himself contemplating the nature of immortality. The world had changed countless times since he first arrived. He had watched buildings rise and fall, technologies evolve, and generations grow up beneath the warmth of the sun. Yet he remained constant, unchanged by time. He realized that this consistency gave him a unique responsibility. He was not meant to lead humanity. He was meant to accompany it, offering support through every era, every transformation, every triumph, and every sorrow. The thought brought him peace. Immortality was not a burden. It was a promise to protect without dominating, to guide without commanding, and to love without expecting anything in return. As the modern age continued to unfold, Superman felt a gentle warmth in his heart. He knew that no matter how complex the world became, his mission would always remain the same: to inspire hope, to lift people when they felt overwhelmed, to remind them that even in the darkest moments, light endured. He understood that humanity was at its strongest, not when it feared change, but when it embraced it with open hearts. One night, as he hovered above the city, snow began to fall softly across Metropolis. The flakes drifted slowly through the air, catching the glow of street lamps and settling on rooftops like a quiet blanket. Superman watched as families stepped outside, marveling at the beauty of the snowfall. Children lifted their hands to catch flakes on their palms. Couples wrapped their arms around each other, enjoying the peace that winter brought. The world felt gentle in that moment, wrapped in a soft stillness that made Superman feel deeply connected to every heartbeat below. He closed his eyes and breathed in the calm night air. He felt gratitude for Jonathan and Martha, who raised him with kindness. Gratitude for Lois, Jimmy, Perry, and the countless people who shaped his understanding of humanity. Gratitude for Kara, who carried the spirit of Krypton with pride. Gratitude for Earth, which had given him purpose far beyond anything his parents could have dreamed. Superman opened his eyes and looked out over the snowy city. The world would continue to change. Challenges would come. Eras would pass. But he would remain, standing gently at the edge of the sky, ready to help wherever he was needed. Not because he was invincible, but because he believed in the fragile, beautiful, hopeful hearts of the people he protected. And with that quiet certainty, Superman drifted upward into the night, his cape flowing softly behind him, becoming a calm, comforting silhouette against the stars, an eternal symbol of hope watching over a world that slept peacefully beneath his gentle guard.